You know what I find really scary? When you start off watching this great show that's promised as this spooky, unique horror story, and by the end it's devolved into a supernatural teen drama show of the sort you'd expect to be aired by the CW. Alas, so is the case with Netflix's Something Very Bad Is Going to Happen. And they're right, something very bad did happen. The show completely fell apart. This has been, without a doubt, the most disappointing show I have seen in a while, not because I hated the show start to finish, quite the opposite in fact. This show started out brilliantly. The first episode was phenomenal. Immaculate. My boyfriend and I were so excited for this story that we stayed up late watching the next episode. It was so good. The best first episode of something that we've both seen in a while. And by the end, we were wondering how we'd come to be watching what felt like a 2026 version of The Vampire Diaries, and both of us considered and had an actual conversation about whether we even wanted to bother finishing it. And the ending was just as poor as we'd come to expect by that point. I can't overstate just how hooked we were by the first episode and a half of this show, just how much we couldn't stop watching, and then how truly terrible it became after that point. I also want to briefly chat at the end of this video about how to do a good horror and where Backrooms and Obsession succeeded where this show failed, just because, again, Backrooms and Obsession are current big movie hits in the horror space and they're so talked about recently. I think a lot can be learned from them, and having seen both of those movies soon after watching this show, it really emphasised in my mind where this show went so wrong and where it failed where other things have succeeded. So welcome back to the channel everybody, I'm Galatea and this is Asis, My Dearly Departed. And today we're going to be talking about how not to write a horror thriller if you don't want to piss off your audience. First clue, don't turn it into teenage drama slop. Yes, I got changed. The weather is deceptive. It's doing that thing where it's cold sometimes and then hot and cloudy, but also really muggy and boiling and horrible and sweaty. So, continuing. So first we'll discuss the setup of the show, and I will take you through the first couple of episodes and explain them because they were really strong, and also explaining them then we'll go into where they went so wrong. So I'll talk you through them, especially the setup of the first episode. Goes without saying that this rant review, sort of, I guess, by the time we come to the end, is going to contain spoilers, so click away. Sorry, I feel I'm kind of unable to do spoiler-free reviews, I feel. So, starting at the beginning, I'll talk you through what happens in episode 1. The show opens with a bride walking down the aisle. She's like heavy breathing beneath her veil, you can hear it. Things are tense, things feel tense, they feel a little off. She stands then, she gets to the altar, she stands looking kind of afraid of the altar, and it quickly flashes through loads of images. Maybe stuff she's remembering, but like stuff from the past that we assume led up to this moment that she's standing at the altar and she's like looks terrified, and it's all these images flashing through her mind and go quickly that we assume got her there. And then the scene cuts to like screaming and a dog walking through blood in the corridors of the house that we assume this wedding is taking place in. And we're like, oh, when's that, what's going on, when's that happened? Then it skips back. Then we cut to 5 days earlier. We meet Nikki and Rachel, a young couple on a road trip. It's winter, it's daytime, but very dark and gloomy as winter is, and they're driving up to Nikki's family's holiday home to get married. And the atmosphere is brilliant in this first episode. It's unsettling, it's weird, it's dark and spooky, and Rachel has this unshakable feeling that something very bad is going to happen. So here are a series of odd things that happen in the first episode, and I'm going to go through them in order, and this is what really sets the atmosphere and the tone of the show and leads you to think, oh my god, something really cool, this show is going somewhere really cool, and there's going to be a really cool twist and story coming together. Spoiler, there isn't. We'll go through them though. So, in order, her fiancé Nikki tells her with some fascination and enthusiasm about a guy who founded a famous local custard place near his family's holiday home, this famous custard places they're driving up, the founder of who murdered 3 women. And he's very fascinated and excited telling Rachel about this, and then he puts on a podcast about this serial killer from the point of view of an 8 months pregnant woman who escaped him, talking about her encounter with him. Pregnancies and babies are a huge theme in this show, at least in the first couple of episodes, so really pay attention to that. It's going to keep coming up, pregnancy and babies, and you think it's leading somewhere interesting, and it isn't. Anyway, so they listen to the podcast where this 8 months pregnant woman talks about how she escaped this founder serial killer who also founded the famous local custard place, how she escaped him in the 90s. She talks about she's in his truck and she sees a tiny Barbie shoe on the floor of his truck, so she thought he must have a daughter. So she told him she was having a girl and kept reminding him that she was pregnant and about her baby, and thought the fact he had a daughter and she was pregnant with a daughter. And then he reached over and slit her throat. He then threw her out the truck and she walked for help, holding her throat together. She then describes like getting help and kind of getting saved and is rescued from that. So this podcast snippet, you get all this information about something that's not about the two main characters. They're just listening to this podcast. This podcast snippet is focused on, and it seems like a big deal or something relevant to the wider plot, or something that's going to come back later, or go somewhere. You would think. Rachel and Nikki then stop at a diner, and they have a conversation about pregnancy and childbirth. I cannot stress to you just how much babies and pregnancy are a core theme of the first episode, and even later in the show. Rachel talks about organs and bones shifting to make room for the baby to come out. Like, the way she talks about pregnancy is kind of little bit grotesque and a little bit, she doesn't talk about it favourably, and you're getting into these kind of, like, horror connotations already, just right off the bat with, and it's something to do with babies and this theme and pregnancy keeps coming up. So she's talking about organs and bone shifting to make room for the baby. Rachel also says the words, when her and Nikki are having a conversation, she says the words, quote, "I don't want to be torn open," in reference to childbirth. And then in this moment as well, again, I'm going to go through these episodes in quite a lot of detail just so you get the full effect of all these little weird things that are happening around the area and stuff and to them. So her and Nikki are having this conversation about babies. And then Rachel also overhears a conversation a couple are having, a table over, who suspect their friend is killing his dogs. As they're talking, Rachel is unconsciously doodling the logo of the custard place. The custard place is called Coolies or Coldies, I think. Whatever, I don't know. Coolies. The custard place with the serial killer founder. The serial killer founder that they just listened to the podcast of in the car. So she's doodling unconsciously that custard place logo. Nikki sees her doodling this and goes, "Oh my god, wow, you must have seen the logo before." And she goes, "No, I don't know what you're talking about, I'm just doodling." And he shows her a picture of the logo, which is literally identical to what she's doodling. She's drawing the logo, and yeah, that's maybe creepy, like, oh, how does she know? How does she know this? It's identical to the Custard Place logo, and it's quite, like, specific in a way, so it would be hard to just doodle and make it look like the logo. This whole little cartoon character and stuff. You would think, again, that this would go somewhere. Alas, I tell you no, I cannot tell you how frustrating the show is. The custard place is a recurring theme as well as babies and pregnancy. I cannot tell you how important they make Coolies, the custard place seem for no reason, and the fact that Rachel perfectly knows the logo as well, that never seems to be explained or become relevant, but we're going to go on and I'll get to everything later. So Nikki says that Rachel must have a sixth sense, and Rachel then tells this story of a little girl she used to know who could remember her past life and how creepy it was. Rachel then says, quote, "I don't want haunted children." Again, children, kids, this theme is strong in this first episode, and them talking about having a family together is strong as well, in kind of like a creepy, weird way. We also find out here, in this conversation, that Rachel's mum has been dead since she was little or since she was born. Rachel doesn't have a mum, and she's kind of estranged from her father, or there's something weird going on with her father. So she doesn't really have family. And then also there's this weird moment where Rachel, they're about to leave the diner, and Rachel says to the woman, the couple they overheard talking about killing dogs, that she says to, well, I don't think the couple says he's killing his dogs, they're like, his dogs keep disappearing, and then she says to the woman, he's killing his dogs, isn't he? And then the scene ends there and they leave that diner. Okay, then they're on the road again. Unbeknownst to them, they then drive past a dead fox in a field with flies buzzing around it. Foxes also big theme, symbolism in this whole show. So again, all of this serves to set the ominous tone of the first episode, and like something darker, some like cosmic force is happening. And the setup and the atmosphere and the setting of the show is really, really good for the first episode. So then there comes a bit where they drive through a tunnel, and there's like a cutesy superstition, they both hold their breath. The superstition being that if either one of them breathes before they're out of the tunnel, it means bad luck. And Nikki can't hold his breath all the way through, which adds to the ominous atmosphere, and like they're kind of unlucky or something very bad is going to happen. And Rachel looks unnerved as she turns back to look at the dark tunnel disappearing behind them, as they kind of leave it behind them. And that moment, I think it's just these little moments that were very good in the first episode, building up this ominous sense that, well, something very bad is going to happen. But that there's something greater at play here, some greater force, something supernatural, something weird going on. So anyway, then we're into nighttime, and they're still on the road driving. It's now night, and they stop at a lone rest stop in the snow. And at this lonely rest stop, in a quiet road in the middle of nowhere, they find a lone car underneath a streetlight. In the car, there's just a baby alone with loud music blasting. And the music the baby is listening to, the lyrics are something about a scared rabbit screaming, "Help me." So it's all very creepy, even though it sounds like a happy, jolly children's song. It's weird. It's all very creepy. Creepy and weird. And it's freezing. It's dark. It's freezing. This baby is alone at night in the snow, abandoned in a car playing weird, creepy music. There is no one around but this car and this baby in the car. And the baby starts to cry, like screaming and like, it's quite like horrible and like, oh my god, this poor baby, what the hell? Again, I can't tell you how much of a huge theme pregnancies and babies are in this first episode, and we're not even halfway through. And there's already been so much pregnancy, babies. And this part where they find the baby under the lamppost, this almost seems like an omen or a dream sequence, like it's not entirely real. I mean, it does seem real, but just because it's so weird, you know, they turn up at a rest stop and they find a car under a streetlight with a baby, and it kind of seems like it's been placed there just for them. You know, it almost feels set up and weird and like a signpost or a sign, or that's why I say dream. It feels very deliberate. There's something that feels deliberate about it. So Rachel then freaks out. So, oh my god, this poor baby. She goes to check the bathroom, this lonely bathroom at this lonely rest stop, and there's no one else there. She goes to check the bathroom for the baby's parents. And this bathroom scene was very good. It was so creepy. I was genuinely scared watching this scene. She walks into this empty, quiet, deserted bathroom at night. No one there. I thought this scene was really good. It built the tension. I was scared the first time I watched it, like I said. So there seems to be no one in the loos, in the toilets. And the last toilet stall is locked. Rachel bends down under the stalls to look and see if anyone's there, because I don't think some of the doors she can open. And on the floor of the bathroom, she finds a tiny Barbie shoe. Like the kind in the podcast they listened to. So remember, earlier they listened to a podcast about this 8-month pregnant woman escaping a serial killer, finding a tiny Barbie shoe on the floor of his truck and thinking and talking about her pregnancy and her baby and trying to connect them over that. They listened to that earlier in the day. Then that night, at the lonely rest stop, they find a lone baby under a lamppost at night in the dark, go and check the bathrooms to find the baby's parents, and Rachel finds a tiny Barbie shoe. Again, like the podcast they listened to. Super weird, super bizarre coincidence. Now, I know what you're thinking, because what I was thinking when I watched this show for the first time. You're thinking, wow, this is really building up some epic, creepy, conspiracy type story. It feels like it's all going to be tied together. What is the significance of this? How could this be? What's gone on? What's the connection? Did Nikki do this? Did he know? Did he put on the podcast and deliberately, but, you know? So you're thinking all these things. And as Rachel is bending down to pick up the Barbie shoe, the door to the stall behind her creaks open of its own accord. And was previously locked as well. It's very creepy, and she turns and then slowly walks over to this now creaked open bathroom door at the end, and she looks into the stall and sees a dead fox. Remember, like we saw a shot of a dead fox earlier they were driving past on the road in a field that they missed. They didn't see it, but the audience saw that earlier. And there's now a dead fox stuffed into the toilet bowl, and it's a dead fox cut open with its insides hanging out, and inside the fox are dead fox cubs. It's a pregnant dead fox. Again, pregnancy, death, and babies are a huge theme. Already, still. It feels like it's setting up for something wild, this whole show, okay? So anyway, they have no phone service, so they don't really know what to do. They can't call for help and for the baby. So Nikki stays with the car and the baby, and Rachel drives for help. And as she drives off for help alone by herself at night to find someone to help them with the baby, she drives past a rundown coolie's shack. Again, the custard place. It's like this... But this was like an independent little shack that she just happens to drive past one of their like franchises. And it looks super creepy. And also the letters have fallen off, so it spells dies rather than... Oh, it must be coldies then rather than coolies. Coldies, but it spells dies. Coldies, whatever. Bit cheesy, but okay. And again, you get in the custard theme. Why has this custard place come up again? So Rachel, now alone, finds a sleazy bar called the Swan Dive. And the cinematography and atmosphere of this scene I thought was really good. So she goes into the bar. It's all lit kind of neon blue inside, but in quite a creepy way. There's music playing, but the whole place seems very empty. Totally creepy. There's one girl behind the bar who Rachel tries to convince to call the police. And as Rachel is talking, and the girl behind the bar has said nothing, not one word to her, Rachel's just launching into her story. As the camera's on Rachel, she's talking to the girl, and we see someone in the back of the area of this huge bar, somewhere behind Rachel. We see someone detach themselves from the shadows and kind of walk behind her. So there's someone else there that didn't seem to be there. And Rachel kind of seems to sense something, and then asks the girl if she's the only person in the bar. And the girl says, "You're here." And that's the first thing that this girl said. Anyway, so Rachel convinces this girl finally to call the police. So the girl goes into the back room, into the office to call the police. And then Rachel goes to use their creepy, dark bathroom alone. The place is empty, or it seems to be. And then as she's on the loo, the bathroom door creaks open. Like, not her stall door, but to the door to the ladies' bathrooms creaks open. She hears, like, heavy footsteps. She doesn't know who's entered, what's going on. This is very creepy. I was scared at this scene as well. She's on the loo, and then she looks up, and over the top of the stall, there's this really creepy man just silently staring at her over the top of the toilet stall. That did freak me out a lot the first time I saw this. And I have to say, my tolerance for horror is not hugely high. But yeah, I was creeped out. I was freaked out. So Rachel runs out the loos. Back in the bar, she runs into this creepy guy again. It's a very well done, creepy scene that he kind of slowly walks towards her. And I didn't enjoy that the first time. I enjoyed it in a way and was like, oh, this is really good and scary. But it's freaky. So kind of as self-defense and as a reflex, she stabs him through the hand with her keys. She puts them between her fingers and kind of stabs him, and it goes through his hand. And he just like slowly pulls them out and seems totally unaffected. He then gives the keys back to her, grabs her hand, looks at her engagement ring, and says, "Are you sure he's the one?" So she then legs it out of there, runs back to her car, and in the car park is a truck with the words "just married" written in red. Kind of looks like blood. And then Rachel goes back to the rest stop with Nikki, the car, and the baby, and they're all gone. Nikki, the car, and the baby all gone. Back to the rest stop, and it's just deserted. No one there. She waits alone, and then suddenly Nikki is there, banging on the car with a bloody eye. Again, it's like classic jump scare, like, no one's there, and then Nikki's there. So Nikki says the baby's family came to collect them and they punched him in the face. And it's so casual the way he says it. She's like, what happened? And he's just like, oh yeah, the family came back. The family just came back for the baby. And it seems super suspicious and weird, especially when she went to get help and there was a man in the bar and asked her, are you sure he's the one? Like, Nikki's the one. Ominous. What's going on? And this whole thing cast suspicion on Nikki. And it's supposed to. The writers want you to be suspicious of Nikki in this moment. It's very obvious. Because it's such a weird story. The baby and the car and the whole family, they all just vanished conveniently when Rachel was gone. And they all just vanished after injuring him, and they just took the baby back. And we never see any of this on screen. There is no evidence for this. It's just Nikki's word. And none of this was seen. He just like, oh yeah, that happened. And they left the baby in the middle of the night, alone, in a freezing car, and then just came back for it, according to Nikki. Rachel's obviously weirded out and suspicious of this. She says, they just left their baby? And Nikki's like, yeah, weird, isn't it? I know. And it's such an unbelievable story. It's suspicious. It's supposed to be suspicious. Nikki is suspicious. So the podcast that Nikki played Rachel about the pregnant woman escaping a serial killer, he plays that. And then that same day, later on, she walks into a bathroom alone and happens to find a mini Barbie shoe, like in the serial killer podcast he played her. The fact that Nikki was also going on about wanting her to have his babies, which he was, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier in the diner, where she's talking about your organs moving and all this stuff. They're having this weird conversation where he's really pushing for wanting kids, like, our kids will be great, and she's like resistant to that. So he's going on about wanting babies, and then they find the abandoned baby. And then conveniently, when Rachel's gone, the family come back and take the baby, and there's no evidence for it, and that's just it. Isn't it weird? Creepy, weird. We're supposed to suspect Nikki. And also a weird man in a bar that Rachel doesn't know saying, are you sure he's the one? So Rachel also doesn't tell Nikki about any of the creepy things that happened to her. I mean, she does later, but like a while later. She doesn't say about the man who walks into the bathroom and then watches her on the loo and all this other weird stuff. I feel like this is just more of a dumb, unrealistic horror trope than specific to this TV show. But you better believe, if even half that stuff happened to me, if I just got a creepy feeling from somewhere, if I walked in somewhere and had a creepy feeling, never mind if I stabbed a guy through the hand who was perving on me, the first thing I would do is tell my boyfriend the second I'm back in the car. Actually, I'll probably call him from the creepy bathroom as I'm running out. I mean, I guess she didn't have signal, so fair enough, but I hate that trope where they just don't act like real people. The first thing you do if something like that happens is, oh my god, you never guess what happened in the loo. I don't know why they don't act like real people, and just, anyway. So, we're now at the halfway point, halfway through the episode, and again, remember how many babies and pregnancy and stuff and all these weird things have happened so far. So we're halfway through the first episode, and they arrive finally at Nikki's family holiday house. It's snowing and dark, and they wind down this huge, creepy tree-lined drive. The little vacation cabin Nikki described is huge, which he conveniently never mentioned to her. Which again makes him a little bit suspicious, like, not in and of itself, but added with loads of other things. It seems weird that he's not been entirely upfront about his family or their background. You know what I mean? There's little off maybe. So there's ominous music as they arrive in the darkness to this huge fancy cabin. And inside the cabin is really beautiful. There's like this glass view in the set. It's like built in kind of a center, and in the center of the cabin there's a courtyard but there's glass windows all around the courtyard, so as you're walking through the corridors of the house, you see this view of this beautiful snow-covered courtyard with some trees and stuff, and there's snow falling down and in the middle of the house kind of, but not, and it's very beautiful, but also dark and creepy and very ominous. By the entrance of the house, there are these 2 big taxidermy dogs that Nikki describes as a tradition with the family dogs. So basically they always have those types of dogs, the same breed of dogs, and they always stuff them when they die. To each their own. Most people bury their beloved family dogs, but okay. So Rachel tries to get a closer look at the dog. She kind of kneels to try and look at them. And Nikki, totally seriously, runs in front of her to stop her looking in the dog's eyes and says, "We always got in trouble for looking in their eyes. It's disrespectful once they're dead." Nikki's a weird guy. There's something off with Nikki. That's what the writers really want you to believe, something is off with Nikki. Rachel asks how anyone would know if you looked them in the eyes. And Nikki says, quote, "My dad said that they could see." That's weird. Rachel says, "I just looked them in the eyes. Am I in trouble?" And with a smile, Nikki says, "I guess we'll find out." Friendly banter or a veiled threat said with a smile? Who knows? You could interpret it either way at this point. So by the entrance, there's also a family portrait of Nikki's family and their spouses. They painted over his brother's ex-wife with his new one, which is weird. And there's an empty chair next to Nikki in this family portrait so that his future wife can just be painted in. Are you creeped out by Nikki and his family yet? Because the show really wants you to be creeped out by Nikki and his family. The show is screaming at you to be creeped out by Nikki and his family. So then, as Rachel and Nikki leave to find their room, still not having met any family members, Nikki averts his eyes when passing the taxidermy dogs, showing that he clearly believes in this thing and we won't look at them in the eyes. Creepy, weird is weird. So there's still ominous music and dark corridors, and then they get to their room and there's a snarling bear head above the bed. It's obviously trying to create this weird, creepy atmosphere, you know? So Nikki then lets Rachel find her way to the kitchen alone to get ice for him, for his eye, because he got punched in the face, remember, supposedly by the family with the baby. So he lets Rachel find her way to the kitchen alone to get him ice, even though she's never been in the house before and has never met any of his family members, which honestly I think is just a bit fucking rude and weird of him. I'm not wandering alone around your family's creepy house at night when I have never met any of them and might awkwardly walk into one of them in their pajamas nipping to the loo or something. Are you crazy? You go and get ice from the kitchen. You know where it is. You know everyone. I'm not wandering around as a stranger in their house alone at night and trying to find my way to a kitchen that I have no idea where it is. No thank you. So anyway, in the kitchen, Rachel meets Nikki's unhinged sister, Portia, who swings from extreme sweetness and warmth to sudden nastiness and anger and a bit sadistic kind of streak, said with a smile. Portia is... She's just a crazy bitch, really. And she also meets in the kitchen Nikki's brother, Jules, and Jules' wife, Nell, who are both cold and they hardly say anything and they mostly just stare at her weirdly. They're creepy, bizarre, suspicious. I would feel that at the very least, they did not want me there. Apart from Portia, who's like overly nice, but in a way that comes off as quite creepy and, like I said, a little bit sadistic sometimes and like Regina George vibes, but worse. Like sweet, but also then weirdly like almost aggressive and challenging and bitchy, and then sometimes just a bit sadistic, but said with a smile and like, oh, I'm just kidding. So it's all very unsettling. Rachel starts telling them about the abandoned baby, and then Portia, Nikki's crazy sister, interrupts with a giggle to tell Rachel about the sorry man. Nell snaps at Portia when Portia starts to tell this story, like she wants her to shut up, and then Nell and Jules don't want to stick around for this and they leave the room. Portia then tells Rachel, when they're alone, about the time when Jules, Nikki's brother, sorry if this is confusing, about the time when Jules, Nikki's brother, was 8, and he ran away in the woods and came across the sorry man, who cuts women open and turns them inside out as he cries and says, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, over and over again as he does this to women. And the sorry man comes up from hell believing his long-lost wife is hidden inside another woman, and the sorry man kills brides on their wedding night. Jules' young son, Jude, confusing because the father and son have really similar names, so I'm sorry if that's confusing. So there's Jules, Nikki's brother, and then Jules' son, Jude, by his first wife, who was about 10. So Jude, the little boy, also overheard the story. He was eavesdropping and he got really scared. And it seems like Portia has told this story intentionally to freak Rachel out as she is about to be the bride. She's about to be a bride. And she's told her the story about this sorry man who Jules allegedly saw as a child, killing a bride and turning her inside out and crying and saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. So back in their room, Rachel says to Nikki, I do sort of feel like I'm having deja vu, but not the good kind. Like I feel something so familiar and I don't know how to describe it except just dread. Like when you know that something bad's going to happen, you just know. And I've been feeling that way more and more and more and more since we got here. So Rachel feels like something familiar. She feels deja vu, like there's something familiar going on. And she feels like something really bad's going to happen. Bad deja vu feels like something very bad is going to happen. So Nikki comforts Rachel and says that he gets it. But like at this point, we're kind of suspicious of him. He seems weird. It could also be interpreted as him reassuring her to stop her spiraling or being suspicious, you know? So then they start kissing in bed, but Rachel stops the kissing and says, I have to do the thing. So this then cuts to Rachel climbing into a wooden box, like a big wooden trunk at the end of their bed, and Nikki shutting the lid with her inside, and then turning out the lights. Then it cuts to them then later having sex in bed. If you think the weird box thing is ever going to be explained, it won't be. Like countless other things in this show, it's seemingly only there to try and trick the audience into an ominous atmosphere and thinking that something more intelligent and complicated than what the writers actually came up with is going on. It was never explained. And it's never brought up again from the first episode, so you're like, later you're like, oh wait, remember that weird box thing that never went anywhere? What the hell was that about? And I even looked online to see, did I miss something? I went online and looked, and there were other people saying, what was with the weird box thing? Why was that never explained? Many things were not explained. Rachel then wakes up in the middle of the night with a nosebleed, and she hears creaking and footsteps in the corridor outside. Again, this scares us, because Portia told us, I didn't mention this, but when Portia told Rachel the urban legend about the sorry man, Portia told Rachel that blood is how the sorry man is summoned. If you bleed, you summon the sorry man. So obviously, if Rachel wakes up with a nosebleed and then there's sounds outside in the corridor and stuff, you're thinking, ooh, something weird's going on. So Rachel, like any good horror protagonist, is stupid and decides to go investigate the noise alone in the pitch black, creaking corridors of a strange house, leaving Nikki, her fiancé, and who's familiar with the house, asleep. Why? Who knows? Not her house, not her business. That would be my attitude. Creak away at night. The house can creak away. I'm staying in bed. I'm not going anywhere. This doesn't concern me. But anyway, Rachel, because she's a horror protagonist, she has to do that. So as Rachel is then wandering the corridors of a strange house alone at night, bearing in mind she's still not met his parents, okay, she's wandering the corridors, there's this persistent and creepy banging and creaking noise. So she's walking the corridors, in the distance there's like a bang, persistent bang and a creak, bang and a creak. Rather than going back to her room to get Nikki like a real person would do, she continues alone to investigate the strange sound in the strange house alone at night. Sure, okay. The noise happens to be the front door banging open and shut in the wind. So banging open and then like creaking shut. The implication being someone has opened it. Because Rachel doesn't value her life, she steps outside of the cabin at night. She steps outside to check it out. Okay, finds nothing, and then goes back inside and shuts the door behind her. When she's inside, she then notices wet footsteps leading from outside from the front door into the house again, into one of the rooms. And because, again, I can only assume she suffered a severe blow to the head, she follows the footsteps alone into the dark. So Rachel, I feel, at this point deserves to die as a punishment for her stupidity, because the only two options of this scenario are either option number one, an intruder, in which case, go and get Nikki, because what the hell do you think you're going to do alone in the middle of the night with no weapon and no phone? Or two, it's a family member who's gone and done something in the middle of the night and then come back into the house, in which case, why are you following their footsteps in their own home when you haven't even met his parents yet, and when it's clear they probably don't want to be bothered if they're out and about in the middle of the night, and you're just going to barge in on them rudely, having followed their footsteps for, like, not your house, not your business. There's also special option number 3, which is that it's either a ghost, demon, or the sorry man, in which case, refer back to option number 1. What the hell are you going to do by yourself, Rachel, with no weapon or no phone and completely alone and no one knows that you might be in danger? That's dumb. That's to go and get Nikki. Go back to bed, you big dumb idiot who's not behaving like a real person would behave. Anyway, it turns out that it's option number 2, a family member. Rachel follows the wet footsteps and finds Nikki's mother creepily standing in a nightie, swaying from side to side with her back to her in an empty room. Rachel, with zero survival instincts, calls out, "Mrs. Cunningham?" As you would if you see a strange woman that you don't know, you've never met, standing in a dark room in the middle of the night, wearing a nightie with her hair down, like some kind of fucking ghost, swaying from side to side with her back to you. No! You see, the right action, the correct action, the normal action in this scenario is to go and get Nikki, tell him his mother, who you haven't met yet, is swaying in the front room, possibly asleep or sleepwalking, and could he maybe go and check if she's okay? Because you're a stranger to her, and either she's possessed or a witch or something weird is going on, in which case stay away from her for your safety, or she's a distressed or sleepwalking older woman, in which case, again, go and get Nikki, because in that instance, it's probably not best for a stranger to, like, go and help and deal with her and she's not met you yet. Don't confuse her or embarrass her, even if she's, like, sleepwalking and she's in a nightie in the middle of the night. Like, there is no reason, there's no option that makes it good why you wouldn't just go and get Nikki. Like, either she's dangerous, in which case, what are you doing? Or she's an innocent woman who might be embarrassed or distressed that a stranger she's never met and her future daughter-in-law just finds her, like, in a quite vulnerable state. You know what I mean? There's just not a good, like, going at Nikki and be like, your mum's in the front room, like, swaying by herself. Do you want to go and see if she's okay? That's the normal thing to do in that scenario. I'm just advice, people, if you find yourself just go and do that. So Mrs. Cunningham, as expected, says nothing and continues facing the other way, her back to Rachel, just in the room, swaying. Rachel approaches her. Mrs. Cunningham still doesn't move. She just kind of, she doesn't like react to Rachel. And rather than Rachel running away or going to get Nikki or, you know, doing anything other than what she does, she stupidly, again, because she has no survival instincts, tries to touch Mrs. Cunningham's shoulder, whereupon Mrs. Cunningham suddenly is alert, grabs Rachel's hand, smiles creepily, strokes Rachel's face, and whispers, "There she is, the next Mrs. Cunningham." Mr. Cunningham, Nikki's father, then suddenly enters, doesn't even acknowledge Rachel's presence, but ushers Mrs. Cunningham away. Now, if that was me, I'd feel very, like, awkward, and I'd be like, oh, they probably feel, like, upset or embarrassed or pissed off that I kind of walked in on their private business. Like, she seems ill or disturbed or something. This was a really weird, kind of awkward moment. He really not happy. He didn't even say hi to me. He didn't even acknowledge my presence. He just kind of took her away. It's not a good outcome. I don't know why you didn't go get Nikki, but anyway. So then, as Mrs. Cunningham is leaving, as Mr. Cunningham is ushering Mrs. Cunningham out of the room, Mrs. Cunningham, as she's leaving, she turns and says to Rachel, "We won't be seeing much of each other anymore." Creepy and weird. Also, I'm thinking, not sure about his parents. They're kind of creeping me out a bit. I don't know if I want to get involved in this. Anyway, after they have left, Rachel then sees a letter on the floor addressed to her, with their address on, but it's addressed to Rachel. So she opens it, because it's addressed to her, and inside is one of her wedding invitations. But on the back, someone has written, "Don't marry him." So then the blood from her nosebleed, she's still having a nosebleed, drips onto the paper, and the credits roll. That's the end of episode 1. There's not much further. I'll just explain to you some of the odd bits that happen in episode 2, and then why it just lies to the audience and how it goes so off the rails. The way this story goes is ridiculous. So episode 2 opens with Nikki's mum, Mrs. Cunningham, giving a weird boy mum speech at breakfast. She also talks about souls and sacrifices and how in a marriage, quote, "you don't let anything tear you apart, no matter how gruesome," which is a normal thing to say at a pre-wedding breakfast. She also says, quote, "It's up to you now to protect the soul in front of you. Marriage is a powerful merging of souls. It's like being sewn together." And then at the end, she says that marriage is like immortality, and then everyone cheerses to immortality. We're clearly meant to think that they're witches or something. Clearly. Okay? The writers desperately want you to think they're witches. Or Satanists, you know? So then Rachel's wedding dress goes missing from the wardrobe, their wardrobe. They're like, I know I brought the wedding dress. I know the wedding dress is missing from their wardrobe. So Rachel then overhears Nikki's dad and Nell, Nikki's sister-in-law, talking about not wanting to mess up their plan. Nikki's dad is like, keep an eye on Nikki's fiancé, meaning Rachel. Weird, you hear a conversation about their plan and keep an eye on me? Like, so then Jules' son from his first marriage, not Nell's son, but his first wife's son. Jude, who's similar name to his father, Jules, Jude tells Rachel that she should be scared of the sorry man and, quote, "You don't know anything about what's going on here." Because Rachel's trying to tell him, like, the sorry man's not real. And he's like, you don't know anything about what's going on here. Okay, so the writers really want you to think that something weird or supernatural or bizarre is going on. Why would he say that to Rachel otherwise? So Nikki then says that he's going to drive 8 hours away to get Rachel's wedding dress because they think they left it at a friend's house on the way on the road trip. Even though Rachel's like, no, I'm sure we brought it. I know we brought it in the car. But Nikki's like, no, I know we probably left it there. I'm going to go get it. Rachel doesn't want him to go, but he insists. And his family all push him to do it. They all like push him to go and get the wedding dress. So Rachel is then left alone with the creepy family. Convenient. Also convenient, the second Nikki is gone, his mother suggests that Rachel tries on her dress, her wedding dress. So Rachel doesn't want to do that, but Portia, Nikki's sister and Nikki's mum, really push for it and make Rachel feel really uncomfortable, and she agrees under duress. Even though the whole reason Nikki left is to go and get her original wedding dress, and they were like, yeah, go Nikki, go and get her wedding dress. So they were pushing for it, and then the second he's gone, they're like, try this one on. So it's weird. It's convenient, it's creepy, it's bizarre. They are desperate for Rachel to wear Nikki's mother's wedding dress. Convenient that hers went missing, which is what you're supposed to think, obviously. So his mum, Nikki's mum, Portia, his sister, and Nell Jules's wife, Nikki's sister-in-law, all dress Rachel, and it feels ritualistic, really ritualistic and weird. They take away a necklace with loads of meaning. They just, like, take it away as they're dressing her. Even though she protests, they just, like, whip it away. His mum removes Rachel's engagement ring and puts another one on that belonged in their family, even though Rachel says that she wants to wear the engagement ring that Nikki gave her, because obviously that's the whole point of an engagement ring. Why do I want one that goes with the dress better? That's the engagement ring my fiance gave me, give it back. She says, no, I want to wear that one. And Portia, who again is unhinged, she does the classic where she swings suddenly from being sweet into a mega bitch and accuses Rachel of being disrespectful. She's like, don't be disrespectful. And then Rachel just shuts up and then agrees and is wearing this strange engagement ring, and they just kind of taken her stuff. So Rachel also finds out at this moment that there's 100 people coming to the wedding, even though it was only supposed to be an intimate, like, immediate family gathering. And Portia just goes, but that is family. It is just family we invited. So again, we're thinking, oh my God, is her wedding like some sort of ritual, like cult gathering that she was unaware of? Like, all the coven is getting together, you know what I mean? Like, this whole extended creepy family, they're all going to come and it's going to be some weird ritual. That's what we're supposed to think, that's what we're thinking. Then at this moment, Portia accidentally stabs glass into her arm, there's blood everywhere, and Nell ushers Portia away to clean Portia up. Rachel overhears Portia say to Nell, I don't think I can do this, I can't do this to her. So you're going to do what? Do what to her? To Rachel? To, like, what? Do what? What's going on? So Rachel is then left alone with Nikki's creepy mum, Mrs. Cunningham, who doesn't seem to care about Portia being stabbed and have blood gushing everywhere. It's very weird. And instead, she's just kind of like creepily staring at Rachel, and she gives Rachel a pearl necklace, makes Rachel rub it on her teeth to check it's real, which is like a really, like, weirdly intimate, bizarre, like, kind of moment. And then Nikki's mum tells Rachel the lovely story about her great-grandmother being buried alive. Then, as she's putting on the pearl necklace around Rachel's neck, Nikki's mum strokes the bare skin on Rachel's back in the creepiest way, almost sensual. It's really bizarre. She's like stroking Rachel's bare skin, and she says the words, Nikki's mum says this to Rachel as she's stroking her bare skin, she says, quote, a mother absorbs her children, and vice versa. And as she says that, there's creepy music playing. Again, we're getting creepy pregnancy and baby symbolism. I can't stress you enough. Pregnancy, baby, symbolism, mother, child, like, it's so huge in this show, the symbolism so far. So then, after she said that, Nikki's mum stands next to Rachel, tilting her head, like looking at her, as Rachel's like facing away, like she wants to devour her. She's kind of looking like, it's really weird. And then she says, look at me, honey. And then Rachel does look at her, and then she looks Rachel dead in the eyes, and Nikki's mum's looking Rachel dead in the eyes. She has tears streaming down her face, and she whispers to Rachel, I'm so sorry. Rachel, completely freaked out, is starting to tear up too, and just kind of is like, what? And Nikki's mum replies, because of what this will do to you both. Okay, so you're thinking, okay, obviously they're going to sacrifice her and eat her or something, or do some kind of weird ritual spell, like what's going on, what's the deal here, clearly Rachel's the sacrifice, why, what's happening, how does this relate to everything that happened before? And you're thinking all of those things because the show wants you to think all of those things. The show is doing everything in its power to make you think all of those things, to make you think that all the creepy events on their journey and Nikki's creepy family are all connected, and that it's going to be so satisfying when it's all revealed and come together at the end. The show is lying to you to try and make itself more interesting, like a bad date. It's not a good twist, it's actually just insulting how hard the show is trying to make you believe that the family are evil or supernatural in some way, only to pull off a cheap twist. Genuinely, when I watched this show back to make notes, once I knew the twist, it made me so angry because it's not a good setup. The show, it's literally just pretending to be one thing, so like blatantly, and trying so hard to make you believe a lie in a way that doesn't make sense later. Like, you don't watch it back and go, oh, that makes so much sense when I know the twist. You just go, what, that doesn't make sense. Like, what are you doing? You're just lying to me now to try and make me think this family's evil. It's not clever. Anyway, so then Rachel finally has decided to act like a normal person, and she calls Nikki and tells him he better get back home now because his family is being weird and it's stressing her out, and they're all crying and stroking her and being bizarre. So that's the first reasonable thing that Rachel has done so far. Nikki tries to reassure her, but in a way that makes me think is humouring her and like he's in on it. He doesn't seem like that. It's weird. So Rachel tells him that his family is hiding something. Remember the conversation she overheard between Nikki's dad and Nell, where they were like, it's going to ruin our plan and keep an eye on her. Rachel then goes searching for her real wedding dress. Because of how weird they're being, she's now convinced they've taken her wedding dress, and because they want her to wear Nikki's mum's wedding dress. And they got rid of Nikki as well for some reason. So she goes looking for her real wedding dress, and she finds a scrap of the material from her real wedding dress outside Portia's room, confirming that her wedding dress was at some point in the house. They did not leave it anywhere. So she goes inside Portia's room to search for her wedding dress, and she finds in Portia's room tarot cards, creepy dolls, and a book called The Practice of Supernatural Ritual with a picture of people summoning the literal devil on the front. When I tell you that this family is not into the supernatural at all, but the show is trying so hard to make you believe it, I'm not kidding. And the actual twist, I'm sorry, is so shitty. This frustrates me so much because it's what I call lying to your audience. It's not a clever setup with like a red herring where they're like, oh, you thought one thing, but actually it's clever and actually it's another. At this point, the show is literally just lying to you about what the story is about and just trying to trick you. Portia has a fucking devil summoning book in her room. Oh, it's so dumb. Everything is explained away by coincidences later on, by the way. Okay, so then Rachel overhears Nell and Portia bitching about her. Portia says that Rachel is going to ruin everything, and Nell responds, she's going to do what she's told if she knows what's good for her. Again, you're thinking some kind of weird cult, that they've got some role for Rachel, they're really there's something going on. When I tell you that Nell saying this makes zero sense later on, when you know like what happens and Nell's connection to like who Nell is as a person and the connection to the family and stuff, it just makes zero sense that Nell would ever have said this. The show is literally just lying to us. They want us so desperately to believe this family is evil and all in on some conspiracy, so they're just like making things happen that don't make sense later, trying so hard to make you believe that a conspiracy is going on when it just isn't. Again, it just makes no sense that Nell would say that. Like, she'll going to do what she's told if she knows what's good for her. Nell doesn't give a fuck about that later. Like, they just want you to believe that there's a conspiracy. Anyway, continuing. Rachel then runs into Nikki's dad in the corridor, who is shaking with anger as he asks Rachel why she's wearing his wife's wedding dress. This is the first time that Nikki's dad has ever spoken to Rachel, by the way. At least on screen. It's first thing, he's shaking with anger and it's like, why are you wearing her dress? Rachel is then like, oh no, Mrs. Cunningham told me she wanted me to wear it. She told me to try this dress on. And Nikki's dad tells her twice to take it off, quite aggressively. Rachel says she will. She backs away from him, looking afraid. Okay, so at this point, I'm going home. I'm leaving. I'm gone. Your mother traumatizes me and forces me into her wedding dress and strokes my back in a creepy way and like apologizes to me while crying, like, I'm so sorry for what this will do to you. And then your father won't speak to me except to frighten me so much he looks like he's going to kill me. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen. If you want to marry me, it won't be here. I've had enough. Goodbye. Goodbye forever. Goodbye. I will marry you, but not here with your family. So Rachel tries to call Nikki again. She can't get through to him. Then she snoops in Jules' room, Nikki's brother. I have to specify that because Jules and Jude, names so similar. So she goes snooping in Nikki's brother Jules' room. He catches her snooping through his wardrobe, looking for her dress, that she now firmly believes is stolen. Jules then plays a weird little mind game with her, and then after that, he offers to help her get his mother's wedding dress off, which she can't do alone because it's like buttoned up at the back and she can't get the wedding dress off. Rachel reluctantly agrees to let him unbutton it. I guess Nikki's not there and the rest of his family are crazy and, you know, whatever. She's like, okay, fine, you can unbutton the dress. He does that. He unbuttons her wedding dress in a way that almost feels sexual. There's almost something like weirdly sensual and like there's a chemistry between them. And then he stares at and strokes her bare back, kind of in the same way that his mother did. Strokes her bare back in like a weird way. Again, no explanation for this later. I guess it was just a coincidence that they both did that. They just wrote that in because the writers want you to believe they're going to kill her or eat her, but they weren't smart enough to do it in a way that just isn't just lying to you or that just doesn't make sense later. Why did he stroke her bare back in the same way his mum did earlier? And why was there tension between them? Like, why did he seem almost like a sexual connection to her, which you'll find as the show goes on doesn't make any sense. After that, anyway, I'm getting stressed. I'm getting stressed at how little sense this show makes, but how much potential it had. That's the most insulting thing. It had potential. Rachel keeps trying to call Nikki and he won't pick up and she's just stuck at their house. She finds her wedding dress garment bag under the bed, which if she needed any more confirmation, just confirms even more. Someone took the dress out of the garment bag. The wedding dress was in the house. Someone's taken it on purpose. They've removed it from the garment bag. Then it's supper time while they're all eating supper and gaslighting Rachel that nothing is wrong. Rachel excuses herself. She runs outside in the dark and the snow and finds in the woods an effigy hanging from a tree wearing her wedding dress. Commence scary music. Alone in the woods and in the dark at nighttime, she looks up and hanging high in the tree is this wooden life-size stick effigy wearing her stolen wedding dress. She continues through the wood and finds a large tent under which Mr. Cunningham, Nikki's dad, is digging what appears to be a huge grave. She freaks out and runs and he chases after her through the dark woods, telling her, like, wait. She keeps running, as you would. Finally acting like a normal person, she runs all the way to the driveway where she runs into Nikki. Nikki's car is just driving in. Nikki's just arrived home. She runs into the car. She jumps into the car with him and tells him, like, go. Your family want to sacrifice me to the devil or something. Rachel says that she thinks Nikki's dad is the sorry man, the serial killer, and that they have to leave now. The whole family then appear. I don't know how the whole family appear because they were all having supper, and it was just Nikki's dad alone in the dark digging a hole, who was then chasing her. So now, how the whole family here, I don't know, just like seconds later, unless they knew, nothing makes sense. The whole family then appear out of the dark into the car's headlights, and Nikki goes to talk to them, even though Rachel is like begging him to leave. He's like, let me just go talk to them and see what's going on. So he goes to talk to them. Then we get the epic twist. I hope you're on the edge of your seats. It's such a good twist. Way better than like a cool supernatural thing or something evil going on or a big conspiracy or... No, it's better than all that. Get ready for it. Are you ready? Are you ready for the cause of all this? Are you ready? You're not ready. You're not ready for this. Drum roll, please. Nikki's mum has a brain tumour. That's it. That's the twist. They don't actually want to kill her. His mother just has a terminal brain tumour. That makes sense. Doesn't that explain like everything that I just went through? So they all go inside for a cup of tea to talk about the misunderstanding. And they're telling the truth. There's no later twist. They're telling the truth. Their explanation for looking like the whole family was trying to kill her is mum has a tumour and is dying. And that was actually it. Also, there are another 6 episodes of this show to go. You can't promise me so much and deliver so little. Why does Portia have a devil summoning book? Coincidence. So anyway, as it turns out, the family are kind of using Nikki and Rachel's wedding also as a going away goodbye party for Nikki's mum too, because she's dying. So they're using it as like that as well, without telling Nikki and Rachel, which is weird. But because they didn't want to upset Nikki, I think, I don't know. But they were also like, oh, we're kind of using your wedding. That's why the wedding is so important to us. We're making such a big deal of it and being so overbearing and creepy and weird and stroking Rachel's back because it's also a goodbye party. Goodbye, you're dying. So yeah, it's weird, but like that's why Nikki's mum wanted Rachel to wear her wedding dress, because she's dying. Does it explain why she talked about absorbing your children and stroked Rachel's back in the same way that Jules did? Why did they both do that? Another coincidence, I guess. Like, no reason except the writers really wanted you to think they were going to eat her or something. But what about the creepy effigy wearing the wedding dress, you ask? How could that be just hand-waved, explained away? How was that down to the brain tumour? Well, this is the clever answer. That was Jude, who was somehow skilled and strong enough, he's 10, to build a life-sized effigy and hang it seriously high up from a tree all alone in the middle of the woods, and within like a few hours, built it, got rope, hung it high up from a tree somehow, and he did it because he was scared the sorry man would come for Rachel. So Jude, the 10-year-old, was trying to trick the sorry man with the effigy, and so he stole Rachel's wedding dress to try and make the sorry man think the creepy effigy in the woods was Rachel, to save Rachel from the sorry man. Doesn't that make sense? Just another coincidence. It's just a coincidence that happened along with the brain tumour. Like, it's a coincidence. It makes sense, guys. And again, that's actually what happened. No twists here. He, Jude, the child, built a creepy effigy to trick the sorry man because somehow that's the obvious thing a 10-year-old boy with no knowledge of the occult would do to try and save his uncle's fiancée after hearing a scary story. And you're probably thinking that all these things sound awfully plot convenient, and I would agree with you. It's dumb. More than dumb, it's dishonest storytelling to try and trick the viewer, but I will get to that later. Also, by the way, Rachel sat through their whole explanation without knowing who made the effigy until after this chat. Like, she went back in the house, she sat through and was like, oh, I'm so sorry you have a brain tumour, that makes so much sense. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I thought you were trying to kill me, I'm so sorry. They went through all that, and she still didn't know about the effigy until after that conversation. Okay, if it's me, even if your mum has a terminal brain tumour, I'm not going inside for a nice chat until someone explains to me why there's a fucking effigy of me wearing my stolen wedding dress that you all gaslit me and told me, like, wasn't stolen, wearing my stolen wedding dress hanging from a tall tree in the middle of the woods at night. Again, especially when you all gaslit me into thinking that I had left the dress behind. I'm not going inside until someone explains that. How do you go from being terrified for your life, like Rachel was, she was terrified for her life, she was like, Nikki, go, they're going to sacrifice me to the devil. How did she go from that to just going indoors with them without that being explained to her first? I'm not getting out of the car until you explain very clearly, in no uncertain terms, why you made a sacrificial voodoo doll of me you being terminally ill is not on my list of concerns at the moment, and I feel like that is fair. Why would you go inside with them and you're like, okay, great, brain tumor, sorry, what, the effigy that I just saw in the, why is he, grave? Like, she doesn't know all that until after the conversation, after they, like, all kiss and make up, and it's just really weird that wouldn't be the first thing that you're like, I'm not going inside with you until you explain to me what the fuck's going on. And I also would not believe the Jude explanation in that moment. I'm like, sorry, you're telling me your 10-year-old son and your 10-year-old grandson, by himself, in a few hours, he built a life-size effigy. And I get, they kind of try and, like, justify it, because they're like, oh, he builds little models out of sticks all the time. Yeah, little models, that's not a huge life-size effigy. How did he get it up in the tree by himself? So the brain tumour reveal happens towards the end of episode 2. Again, there are 8 episodes of the show in total. That is far too soon for this stupid reveal. But anyway, the brain tumour reveal happens towards the end of episode 2, and I can pinpoint that as the moment that all this amazing build-up and tension just deflated like a sad little balloon. No satisfying climax, no good reveals, just this awesome premise and all this slow burn, all these things leading up to something weird and bizarre, and the tension building and building, going out not with a bang, but a pathetic little fart as it dies. From that point on, the show really lost its way and was tough and meandering to get through. It was that moment, that was the moment. The show started to feel confused, like there was no clear point it was heading towards, no coming together of different threads to paint some wonderful picture and bring it all together and pull it off and really pull the cat out of the bag and be like, whoa, we've done it, isn't it a great show? No. It was like at that moment, it just took a completely left turn and turned into a totally different story. It picked up again a little in episode 4. Episode 3 was bad, boring, terrible. Episode 4 picked up again a little. Part of the episode is an episode of old camcorder footage, and it reveals the origins of the sorry man and Rachel's parents, and it reveals the actual supernatural thing that's going on. But even then, it fails to reach the intrigue and tension of the first episode. And then after that, from episode 5 to 8, it completely loses it again and just becomes tough to get through. It was so boring. Okay, anyway, like I said, the whole supernatural element is revealed way too early in my opinion, like I said, in episode 4 of 8, where it turns out that Rachel's family is cursed because centuries ago a man made a deal with death to bring his fiancée back from the dead, but in exchange he had to believe that she was his soulmate or else he would die if he married her, and the same with all of his descendants. So his descendants, if they got married, have to marry their soulmate. They have to marry their soulmate or else they will die on their wedding day. And if you think, oh, you could just not get married, no, if they're engaged but don't get married by sunset on their wedding day, then they don't die, but the curse passes to their fiancé's family and they themselves become immortal and cursed to witness their fiancé's family go through that curse for generations. And that is what happened with the creepy guy who perved on her in the loo at the beginning. He is known as the Witness. Get it? Like a wedding witness, you know? He is an immortal man, hundreds of years old, which is why it didn't hurt when she stabbed him through the hand with the keys. He's an immortal man, hundreds of years old, who was once engaged to Rachel's ancestor, but he was too scared to marry her, and he stood her up at the altar, so he became immortal, and Rachel's family got the curse. And if that sounds ridiculous and way too convoluted as the supernatural explanation, it gets stupider in the last episode because the curse doesn't even follow its own rules and makes even less sense at the end. Sorry, is this a horror show or the latest episode of The Vampire Diaries, where you just make up ridiculous supernatural rules episode by episode for whatever reason, for whatever happens to be the most plot convenient thing at that point in time? What am I watching? So it turns out in the camcorder episode 4, which is footage of Rachel's parents' wedding, after Rachel is kidnapped by her dad, by the way, and made to watch this footage, and also her dad was the person who sent the note saying don't marry him. Yeah, the show gets really silly. So Rachel, kidnapped by her dad, he makes her watch the camcorder footage. She sees her parents getting married in the same area that she's going to marry Nikki. There's never an explanation for this, the coincidence. Another wacky coincidence, like the show's full of just, oh, you thought that was going somewhere? No, ha, coincidence. It was a coincidence. Oh, they're just coincidences. Rachel and Nikki are getting married in the same area that her parents did. I don't know why. But they are. So it's a coincidence. And in the camcorder footage, her parents even go to Coldy's, the creepy custard place. Remember the one that Rachel magically knew the logo for and that has the serial killer founder? Another totally irrelevant coincidence. And then she watches her parents' wedding through this camcorder footage. The Witness, the creepy immortal guy who perved on her, he's the witness at their parents' wedding. It's a very small thing, it's just them and the witness, you know, whatever. He's there for it. And then later, in their cabin, Rachel's mum, still in her wedding dress, starts bleeding out of her eyes and mouth and dies on the floor. We can assume that happens because Rachel's father wasn't her soulmate, and that's just the curse, how it works. I forgot to mention that Rachel's mother is heavily pregnant at that moment with Rachel. So Rachel's father, to save his unborn child, cuts Rachel out of his dead wife, all the while crying and saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And we realise this is what Jules witnessed as a little boy. Jules happens at that moment to be hiding under the bed in the cabin. Another coincidence. So it is kind of a cool creative twist for an urban legend reveal, but it was still not enough to save this show, and it still felt like something of a letdown, because now the show has no real threat and we're only halfway through. First we thought Nikki's family were trying to kill Rachel, some conspiracy weirdness going on. That is a present threat, but then that turns out not to be true. Oh, it's just a brain tumour, sorry. But then there's still a bit of a threat. We still have the question of the sorry man. That is maybe going somewhere and happening. This sorry man from hell, whatever. Only that's revealed a couple of episodes later to not be a threat either, and just Rachel's dad carrying out an emergency amateur C-section. So the only threat left is not actually scary. It's this ambiguous curse made with death, that Rachel will die like her mum if Nikki isn't her true love. If he isn't her soulmate and she marries him, she's going to die. And if she chickens out and doesn't marry him, she will live, but she will become immortal and become the immortal witness, cursed to witness as Nikki's family go through the curse, because the curse will pass to Nikki's family. And sure, that's like not a great thing to have hanging over you, but it's not scary in the same way the concept of a satanic family or a killer sorry man is scary. There's no tangible active threat. It's just this passive curse. It's this passive curse that we then have 4 episodes to just stew and indulge in and drag out on the plot of, oh, will she, won't she marry him? What will happen? Is he her soulmate? Fucking teenage whining for 4 more episodes, and I thought I was supposed to be watching a cool, horror show. Just, listening to teenagers to pretend that, that's the problem then. What's the threat? It's just, oh, is he my soulmate? Which, fine, for a different show, but I was promised creepy families with effigies in the woods, and a whole conspiracy with weird babies and demon spawn. I don't know. I don't want to watch them complaining about that. Oh, are they in love? For 4 fucking episodes. That's my problem. Passive, it's a passive curse now. There's no active threat. So anyway, also there is no explanation for the coincidence that Rachel's parents got married in the same area that Nikki grew up in. The same area that he has his family's holiday house and that him and Rachel are getting married in. They're getting married, she didn't know that. They're getting married in the same area. His family happens to live in the same area that her parents got married in, and they're getting married in the same area as her parents. Fate, I guess. There's no explanation for why Coldy's, the custard place, was important, and how Rachel knew the logo, or why the founder was a serial killer, or why her parents went to Coldy's, the custard place, to get a snack, a treat before the wedding. It makes me so mad. Okay, Jules, Nikki's brother and Rachel's soon-to-be brother-in-law, the same Jules who saw the sorry man as a kid and watched Rachel being amateur C-sectioned, he then bursts in, he rescues Rachel from her father, the father who kidnapped her to save her life, and be like, don't marry him. And then they drive back to the family cabin together, and Rachel tells Jules about the curse, and Jules believes her because of everything that he has seen himself, and the sorry man and stuff. So after this episode and this scene, it really felt like they were setting up Jules, Nikki's brother, and Rachel to be the actual soulmates. So I had a look online, and this seems to be somewhat of a shared sentiment. I wasn't the only person who got the vibe and thought that. Probably because Rachel and Jules started out kind of disliking each other, but then there was that weird sexual tension in the second episode where he unbuttoned her dress, and it felt like they had a moment, and he lingered too long while unbuttoning her dress and stroked her bare back and stuff. So it seems like it is setting that up, and then after he finds out about the sorry man, he reveals a much sweeter and more sincere side, and he really wants to help save Rachel's life and rescue her, and he rescues her from her father, and then it's he so wants to rescue Rachel, he wants to save her life, it becomes his mission. The trauma I had as a child watching this, and it's all led up to this, and it feels very fated and all of this going on. The writers want you to think that Jules and Rachel are soulmates. Okay, now I don't love that angle. However, after the curse is revealed, and Nikki's family, as it turns out, don't actually want to kill her, his married brother who hates his wife, being Rachel's real soulmate, was the next most interesting option under those conditions. Because the only tension now, like I said, is whether or not Nikki is her soulmate. So an interesting story decision that has stakes and would add some more interest into this now fucking boring show would be if actually maybe her real soulmate is Nikki's brother instead. Wouldn't that add something spicy to the mix, something interesting maybe in the story that it just drags on and is just nothing for 4 episodes? That maybe would be the next best thing if there's now that they have to contend with. It adds stakes, it adds something. It adds, more than just, do I love Nikki? Do I love him not? Do I love him not? This theory has some weight, I think, that Jules and Rachel are soulmates, and it's something else that the show clearly wants you to think for a while. At least for 2 episodes they want you to think it. Especially because Rachel doesn't tell Nikki about the curse, but she does confide in Jules, his brother. And then, like I said, Jules becomes obsessed with trying to save her life and seems to connect with Rachel in a way that Nikki doesn't. Nikki's quite surface level and not that intense and deep, and Rachel's quite intense, and her and Nikki seem to be missing that connection. He's just a little bit on the surface, whereas Jules seems to have that same intensity that Rachel has. It makes sense. Except, actually, Jules and Rachel being soulmates, that's just another shitty red herring, because, now, actually, we're going to ignore this friendship and connection that Rachel and Jules built up, and we're going to forget about it after 2 episodes. We're going to build it up in 2 episodes, and then we're just going to actually just drop it completely, like just another plot line we drop, and we're actually now going to build a weird friendship and sexual tension between Rachel and Jules's wife, Nell, and have a make-out scene between Rachel and Nell in one of the later episodes, and just forget about Jules ever have been a thing. Why would we do that? Why would we set up Jules and then drop it and then just be like, out of nowhere, oh no, actually Rachel fancies Nell? Why would we do that? Why? Because this show thinks confusing the audience with nonsensical mixed messages is the same as writing a cool twist. It felt like they were making the story up as they went along at this point. See what I mean with it devolving into like a stupid teen drama, supernatural teen drama? Oh, Rachel has 3 love interests now, but she doesn't. Is it Nikki? Is it not? She loves Nikki. She doesn't. But no actual like stakes and like, actually, Jules is the one. What's good? That would have been the next most interesting thing. Actually, your fiance's brother. What do you do in that scenario? You either die, or it would have been the next best thing if Jules had been her real soulmate, and then what do you do? Because you either marry Jules or you die, or you pass the curse to his family. Like, it would have been so interesting. So, like I said, the show, which is described as horror, now becomes a family drama, and a bad family drama. The next few episodes are just Rachel running around the house arguing with Portia, Nikki's crazy sister, about the wedding, just having arguments about the wedding. It's just wedding planning now. And then trying to navigate his weird parents. Oh, and also Rachel, who I actually really liked as a character at the beginning, despite some silly decisions. She just becomes irritating and stupid by the end, because it's so obvious at a certain point that Nikki is just not her soulmate. It's so obvious that it's like, why are you dragging this out? Trying to be like to the audience, oh, is Nikki Rachel's soulmate? Is he not? Rachel doesn't know. When the audience is like, well, he's obviously not. It's the most obvious fucking thing ever. It's clear as fucking day. Rachel is dumb for not seeing it as well at that point. Rachel is very into energies and fate and all of this and intuition. She really believes in all that. And the fact that her and Nikki had this like crazy fated meeting and that Nikki believes in her intuition is very important to her. And this is why she thinks they're soulmates and is willing to bet her life on it. She knows she will die if she marries someone who's not a soulmate. She's willing to bet her life on it because she's like, well, we had this meeting that was like fate, and it, when it's all intuition, he really believes in that about me, and blah blah. And at their pre-wedding party, she goes around telling all the guests, all the 100+ guests, the fated story of how they met, and she tells it so many times. And then anyway, because Jules, Nikki's brother, really wants to save Rachel, he figures out that Nikki was lying to Rachel all along, and Jules calls Nikki out in front of everyone. And it turns out it wasn't a fated meeting at all. Nikki is just a liar, has been lying to Rachel this whole time. And on top of that, Nikki also does not believe in Rachel's intuition. He doesn't like really believe in it. He's just a liar, and the meeting wasn't fated. And on top of that, he just like doesn't actually put any stock in Rachel's feelings and intuition. So Jules then says, in front of everyone, in front of Nikki, in front of Rachel, he then says that if any meeting was fated, it was his and Rachel's, because Rachel and Jules met when Jules saw her being born. And then now it's come full circle as he's trying to save her life. So that's real fate. And it's true, that does seem like fate. Fate would have been the only reasonable explanation for Jules seeing Rachel being born. It's clearly not another coincidence. That would have been the only reasonable explanation, that he saw her being born. It was such a defining moment for him in terms of a childhood trauma, and then that's the same woman that comes into his life and is marrying his brother. The coincidence is crazy. It's out of this world crazy. The only explanation is that it was fated and him and Rachel are soulmates, and that's yet another reason why him and Rachel should have been soulmates. The writers wanted you to think they were soulmates for an episode and a half, but don't worry, that was just another cheap trick, which they think is the same as a good twist. I cannot with the show. And it's not, it's just lying to the audience. I don't know how many times I have to say that the show just lies to the audience. The whole show just runs on coincidences. It's not a coincidence. You thought this was significant, but it's a coincidence. And Jules even says in front of everyone, he himself even implies that him and Rachel should have more of a chance of being soulmates, should be soulmates. And it seems almost romantic. And then that doesn't go anywhere because Anyway, Rachel is angry at Nikki for a while after this revelation, because obviously you would be, and you're like, well, now am I going to die if I marry you? Like, well, you've lied to me about the foundations of our whole relationship. But then she still decides that he's her soulmate anyway, which is so stupid, because of course he's not. She looks dumb. You're betting your life on a man who started your relationship while rebounding from his ex and lied to you about it. And faked this kind of fated meeting with you, and doesn't actually really believe in your intuition. And you're staking your life on that. This is not just like, oh, I've decided to marry him anyway. This is not a normal situation where it's like, oh, we kind of like that. Whatever. No, the stakes are so high. You're staking your life on this lying man who, that was the only reason you believed he was your soulmate. You're like, oh, it's so fated. And then you find out it's not at all. And you're still like, yeah, he's my soulmate. I'm going to stake my life on it. Why would you do that? So the other main thing that made this show fail, apart from the completely weird left turn that the story took and the setup leading to nothing and, in my opinion, lying to the audience, the other big thing that really harmed this show was filler and bloated episodes. I wonder if this is the problem with streaming services being incentivized to keep people on their platform for as long as possible and letting things just drag out, but my god, did that harm the show. We could have easily lost 3 to 4 episodes out of 8 episodes, and not only would no essential story have been lost, but the show would have been way better, more focused, less boring, tighter, snappier, more entertaining, more gripping, more thrilling, all of those things. There are whole episodes that should have been cut because they were useless and had no impact on the finale. There's a really annoying fly in this room. I'm sorry, it keeps flying, but it's pissing me off, but I can't do anything about it. It's doing laps. It's doing laps of the room and keeps coming past the camera and probably the lights. There it goes. So there's this dumb episode where Rachel breaks into the archives, into like the town archives with Nell, trying to find her family tree and trying to find Rachel's family tree and her ancestors and to see if anyone in her bloodline survived marriage and we assume found their soulmate. This drags on as they find person after person in Rachel's bloodline who died on their wedding day, and it's all boring and useless. We already know about the curse, so this is pointless. We know, we don't. It's not like an episode where they're going, oh my god, your family must be cursed. What? This person died on their wedding day. This person died on their wedding day. If you didn't already know about the curse, this information would be useful because it would be, giving you information that, there's something weird going on with your ancestors where they die when they get married. What's that about? That would be useful, but because it happens, we know about the curse, we know everything, we've been told everything, we know all this information, so why do we have to have a whole episode of going through fucking archives, finding ancestor after ancestor in Rachel's family who didn't survive their wedding day? This could have been 10 seconds of information given to the viewer in a different episode. Just someone coming, by the way, I've done this, I looked into what you asked, Rachel, and looks like no one in your bloodline survived, except this one person. That you don't need them to go to the, oh my god. They bloated and filled it out. Everything just drag out, getting blood from a stone. Let's get every last fucking drop of scene we can get from any scene. God forbid we cut anything short to make it interesting. And I honestly think that the writers really need to dig deep and do some soul searching and ask themselves if there's actually anything interesting about looking through documentation in a government building, and if we needed to spend half an episode on that. Nobody wants to see that. Just have a quick scene. They look through her family tree, they see no one survives, portray that to the audience in a quick conversation, boom, boom, information delivered, boredom avoided, dragging on, not a part of the problem. During this episode as well, as Nell and Rachel are looking through government documentation, which is thrilling, Nikki and Jules are on his stag do, or their bachelor party, as the Americans call it. They're hunting, and this is again where foxes come back into it because they're trapped a fox and blah 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 whatever. And they just have a chat. They have a brotherly chat, and it's more pointless filler that just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter for the plot. Why do I care? Also, in terms of Rachel and Nell looking through government archives, I actually don't care about Nell and Rachel's relationship, or lack thereof, especially when it's going nowhere. They are two potential maybe sister-in-laws who met a couple of days ago. There is nothing interesting about said dynamic. You already set up Rachel and Jules that went nowhere. Now she's getting to know Nell better for an entire episode out of nowhere that really goes nowhere, except for them. Well, the episode ends with them making out, but there are no consequences to this. Rachel and Nell making out, it doesn't add anything to the plot. There are no consequences for this. It went nowhere, so what's the point? It doesn't even lead to a big revelation where Nikki finds this out, or Rachel thinks, maybe maybe I question my engagement, seeing as I made out with my sister-in-law the night before my wedding. No. Nikki just knows about it and he doesn't care. And it just... Why? Why did we need an episode of government documentation and building up a fling between Nell and Rachel that just has no impact on the plot and goes nowhere? Do we need these things? It's so... I'm sorry, I'm trying to... it makes me angry. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated at this TV show. Also, like, again, Rachel, dumb. She's stupid. Why are you staking your life on marrying a guy who has to be your soulmate or you die? You're staking your life on this. If you're making out with your future sister-in-law the night before the wedding. See, if that was me, that would probably make me question if I really wanted to marry him that much. I don't know, maybe I'd be thinking, hey, maybe we have some problems in our relationship if I'm making out with my sister-in-law the night before my wedding. That raises some concerning questions about how in love we are, how functional or not we are. Like, no, why? It's pointless. It's just, they have it and it just doesn't add anything to the character motivations, to the character tensions, to the plot, to anything. It doesn't make anyone question anything. It's pointless. Why does it exist? Anyway, the only useful piece of information to come from this whole episode of looking through government building documentation and the stag do and Nell and Rachel making out, the only useful piece the only useful piece of information to come from this episode is they discover that only one of Rachel's family members, one of her ancestors, got married and didn't die. And now they have her name. They have the name of this Rachel's ancestor that got married and didn't die. This information is briefly useful, but it won't be by the finale. So they could have cut this whole fucking subplot because it changes nothing about the ending and doesn't even add any new information because we already knew about the curse. It's filler, it's bloat, it's trying to drag it out because the show doesn't know what to do anymore. We were so bored. Honestly, we were so bored and close to giving up watching the show at this point. We almost turned the TV off, but we had a conversation about, should we continue watching this? It is so... But I just had to see it out and see how it ended and see if they answered any of the questions, like why did Rachel get in a box before they had sex? Excuse me? Where's the baby under the lamppost? On the off chance they might answer those questions, I continued watching it. But like we honestly could hardly be bothered to finish watching it. I almost wanted to like look it up online or skip to the end. It was just, yeah. We would have stopped watching were it not for the original goodwill of how great the beginning was, of how great the first episode was. This was not the same show we started watching. It was boring, meandering, exhausting, predictable, and stupid. Sorry, it was. Okay, so then, because this is now an episode of shadow hunters, apparently, they summon the spirit of Rachel's ancestor, because of course they do, to ask her how she survived, because now they got her name. It's like, we'll summon her. So using Portia's demon summoning book is now relevant. Oh my god, I hate this show. So stupid with the coincidences, but okay. They summon the spirit of Rachel's ancestor to ask her nicely how she survived, and that she points them in the direction of a ritual potion that they can do. They can do this ritual potion that will make Rachel Nikki's soulmate. The implication here being, by the way, and remember this for later, is that no one in Rachel's entire bloodline married their soulmate because the only person who survived had to do a ritual that turned her into her fiancé's soulmate. So the only reason that one of Rachel's ancestors survived the soulmate curse was because before she got married, she did a ritual that made her into her fiancé's soulmate. This calls into question the very concept of soulmates. Does it not? In the plot, you're now thinking, does soulmates even exist? Are they just so rare, then, that, it's almost impossible to marry your soulmate? It calls into question the whole concept of soulmates, if not one of them. And it's like you have to actually do a ritual to make you a soulmate. Otherwise you just die because it's so impossible or unlikely or they don't exist or whatever. Soulmates are now in question. Okay, so then at this point of the show, everything was predictable. Me and my boyfriend both knew that Rachel was not going to go through with the ritual potion. Especially, so there's a point in the show, Rachel's like, I'm going to do the potion and make myself Nikki's soulmate. And she's running around getting ingredients. But then there's a point where Nikki's father says to Rachel about his wife, who, by the way, is now in a coma, because why not? Nikki's mum's in a coma, and Nikki's dad says to Rachel, oh, my wife would rather die than become someone she's not. And because the writing in this show is no longer good, that was the most obvious way of signposting to the audience that Rachel was not actually going to do the ritual in case it made her someone she's not by becoming Nikki's soulmate. As soon as he said that, I was like, well, she's not going to do the ritual, is she? Because they just signposted that she's not going to do it. And then they still have fucking ages after that of, oh, it's so tense. Is she going to get all the ingredients before the wedding? But you know she's not going to do it. You know she's not going through with it. We were right, by the way. But the problem is, when you know she's not actually going to do the ritual, it makes the entire second to last episode where she's running around as the wedding guests are arriving, trying desperately to find the ingredients for the potion, it makes that whole episode very fucking boring, because you know it's all pointless, it's not going anywhere, it's plot irrelevant, because she's not going to drink it, is she? There's no tension, this is not going anywhere. It was so dull. It was so dull. We knew before she knew that she wasn't going to fucking drink it, and we were right. And it was like played off as like, oh, this moment, you didn't expect this, she's not going to drink. Yeah, she didn't drink it. So no surprise there. Not only were we right, but the potion never comes back into it. You might think, oh, we were right, she didn't drink it now, but then actually later on she's going to then suddenly grab it and it's going to be like her last ditch. She's going to save herself by drinking it last minute. No, it just never comes back into it. The potion was irrelevant. And this made me so angry because that made the last few episodes of this show totally pointless to the whole story. Running around getting ingredients for the potion in the second to last episode was useless to this story. So was the episode before where they did the spirit summoning to ask her how to do the ritual and how she survived. So that was pointless. Which also means, by the way, that going through the archives for information was also a pointless episode. Because now, none of it actually leads anywhere, goes anywhere. So it all, the knock-on effect going back through the episodes is that all of this, that all the episodes they spent so much time on, oh, isn't this a plot thread? It's like, no, because it doesn't go anywhere, it's pointless, nothing happens, we don't even learn anything new. So it's like, you just cut all of that. A good story is supposed to tie all of these threads together by the end. A bad story leaves all these threads hanging, picks up new threads, willy-nilly, just out of anywhere, drops those ones too, then picks up some, but not all of the original threads, and then some random new ones, and makes a half-assed, messy bow that comes nowhere near to a satisfying conclusion. They should have just cut all, of the last few episodes, honestly, cut most of the stuff in the last few episodes. Could have just gone. Get rid of those last few episodes. The last 3 episodes, honestly, almost everything could have been cut. Episode 5 as well, seriously cut down. Get rid of the last few episodes and simplify the story by making Jules and Rachel the real soulmates. I mean, really, honestly, my honest opinion, they should have gotten rid of the whole soulmate curse storyline entirely because it was stupid and it made no sense, and they should have just stuck with the evil family conspiracy plot, which would have been a way better thing and story and what they set up. But if they were going to do a left turn and make it a soulmate curse story, the next best option is that Jules and Rachel should have been soulmates. That's simpler, just stick to it, better, more direct plot. That would have been more interesting. And stuck with that, rather than, oh, are they soulmates? Oh wait, no, now Rachel fancies Nell, after her and Jules were maybe they're soulmates. No, we'll forget about that 2 episodes later, ooh, Rachel and Nell kissing. Oh, now we're forgetting about that. Now she loves Nikki again. Also, some of the ingredients that Rachel needed for the potion was Nikki's man juice. Yes, that's exactly what you think it is, and she got it in exactly the way you would expect. Her own toe bone, which, yes, she cuts off right before she walks down the aisle, blood from the immortal witness, and her mother-in-law's hair, which, honestly, those ingredients, I feel, at this point, just felt like shock value for the sake of it, especially because, again, it was all pointless, she didn't drink the potion. And I'm sorry, who is committed enough to cut off their own toe to survive, but then at the last minute decides to not even drink the potion because they've decided that now suddenly they believe in true love and that he is her soulmate, even though she cheated on him the night before their wedding, found out that he was a liar, and also she has more chemistry with his brother. If I cut off my toe, I'm drinking that fucking potion. Are you kidding me? I'm not cutting off my toe a few minutes before I get married for no reason. If you cut off your toe, you're committed. You're not cutting off your toe and then deciding that you're taking a leap of faith up. My point is, you are so committed to doing that, to saving your life if you cut off your toe. You're not then deciding on a whim that you're not going to drink the potion that you literally cut off your toe for and harvested someone's man juice for. So I really started to dislike Rachel because I just can't go over that. Please comment down below. If you were doing a ritual to save your life and you cut off your toe as part of the ritual, are you committed enough at that point to go through with it? If you had doubts before then, you're probably not cutting off your toe. Let me know. I'm curious in you guys' answers. So the last episode of the show may well have been the worst. It was so boring. I don't feel like the last episode of a horror thriller should be boring. Call me old-fashioned, but I'd like some excitement. I'd like some twists and turns. I'd like some tension. I'd like to be on the edge of my fucking seat. They also, in the last episode, they basically had the same scene at the start of the last episode as they did at the end of the second to last episode. Again, demonstrating why this show should have been like half the length, because there was just repetitive, pointless scenes that dragged on. So, at the start of the last episode, they have this supposed to be like revelatory scene at the altar where they both say like, I love you, and declare their love for each other. They're like literally getting married at this point. And Rachel has this whole declaration about how she believes love is enough, and she's taken a leap of faith and declares that she believes in him, and she believes that he is her soulmate. And at this point, I turned to my boyfriend and I said, hey, haven't we already literally just done this scene at the end of the episode before this? Yes, at the end of the episode before this, which takes place on the timeline of the story only a few minutes before this one, we had this scene, pretty much, where, again, they declare their love for each other over and over again, and Nikki says, all that matters is us, and Rachel agrees, and emotionally, yeah, the actual like dialogue and the content is slightly different in these scenes, but emotionally the scenes hit exactly the same. They could have been condensed or cut down. It's one, like, you don't need both scenes. Condense them, make them one scene, or cut them down, or cut them out. Emotionally, the scenes are the same. They hit exactly the same, and we don't need them both. Plus, they both drag out too long. So long. It's so bloated and repetitive and rambling. You're just spending about 15 minutes across those two scenes in those episodes listening to two people bore you to death with exclaiming their love for each other, and then as a supposed sign of love after all of this, Nikki leaves her at the altar and says he now doesn't want to get married because she never wanted it, and he's doing what she wants. And then they spend the whole rest of the episode arguing, as you would do if your fiancé announced at the altar, let's not get married, in front of everyone. That would lead to a pretty big argument, I think, for most people. Sorry, I thought this was like an interesting, thrilling, cool, supernatural horror. This is more exhausting than listening to a teenager complain about their relationship. My God. Anyway, Nikki decided against marriage, not actually for Rachel's sake, as it turns out, but because he, a classic mummy's boy, had been disillusioned against marriage because he recently found out that his parents' marriage wasn't perfect. I'm bored just explaining this to you. I thought this was going to be some creepy supernatural show, and instead we are listening to a man-child talk about his feelings. Anyway, it also turned out that Nikki never really did believe in the curse, even though he told Rachel he did in the scene before, because, again, he lied to Rachel, again, about believing her intuition and energies, etc., and somehow she is still surprised by this, even though we already had this reveal back in episode 5. We're on episode 8. You found out he was a liar back in episode 5, and that he lied about stuff and didn't believe in energies and intuition. Why are you shocked again? Why are you rediscovering this again? Why are we repeating character arcs and plot points, guys? Cut your damn show down. The audience already knows this about him. We already know this about their relationship dynamic. We fucking know this. We've had this whole story already in episode 5. This is boring. This is boring, this is pointless, we know this, cut your show down. Rachel discovered Nikki was weak, codependent, and a liar back in episode 5, but for some reason, in episode 8, she discovers all of this about him again and is just as shocked as the first time around. For the entirety of the last episode, they just argue. It's just a drawn-out argument of stuff that we already know. So like I said, they're arguing after Nikki says, let's not get married. You never wanted to get married, let's just be together, dude. So they argue after that, as you would, with Rachel trying to convince Nikki that they have to get married, otherwise the curse will pass to his family. Nikki doesn't believe it, and then all they do is scream nasty things at each other that reveal their true feelings and their dysfunctional relationship, which again, most of we already knew. Nikki's brother Jules and Nell are trying to make them get married before sundown because they believe in the curse and they don't want to have the curse. Eventually, Nikki's mummy goes to talk to him like he's a 5-year-old and says that no one is angry with him. He's such a special boy and he's done nothing wrong. He just had a moment, but will he please go and stand at the altar and get married just for mummy like a good little boy? Rachel sees this and is grossed out, obviously. So then Nikki's like, okay, mummy. So then Nikki goes to apologise to Rachel because his mum's had a word with him and he says, okay, I'm sorry, let's get married now actually. Rachel laughs in his face and says no, which is fair. He didn't get married or want to get married or agree to get married when she was begging him to, but now his mummy asked him, suddenly he will. Gross. Right decision, walk away. I don't know if I said this also, but his mum woke up from the coma just before the wedding as well, because why not? I mentioned she was in a coma for a while, didn't I? Yeah, she was. She was in a coma. Anyway, she's not in a coma, because this is now a fucking soap, apparently. What's next? The evil twin's gonna come in and be the real villain of the piece. Oh my god, this show is melting my brain. Then it's sunset, and because the curse passes to the other family if she doesn't get married by sunset on her wedding day, half of the guests there, the ones blood related to Nikki who were already married, they all start dying. They all start bleeding out of their eyes, their nose, and their mouth. Apparently, none of them are married to their soulmate either. Rachel is upset because she didn't realise that would happen, I guess, even though it seems obvious, but whatever, okay. So half the guests start dying because they're the ones blood related to Nikki. Nikki now has the curse, and they're married, the ones who are already married, they're dying if they're not married to their soulmate, and apparently soulmates are a fucking impossible concept because no one seems to be married to their soulmate. So because of this, everyone's dying, blood in the corridors. That was the shot we saw at the beginning of episode 1 with the screaming and the dog walking through blood in the corridors. Anyway, Nikki now finally believes in the curse, and to try and save his family, he tricks Rachel, puts the ring on her finger, and says, "I do," in front of the immortal witness, which supposedly finishes the marriage ceremony because the only thing earlier in the ceremony when they were getting married, the only thing that hadn't been completed earlier was him saying, "I do." Rachel had already said her vows. So then apparently all it takes is Nikki being like, "Hey, here's the ring on your finger, I do," in front of the witness, and then it's like, oh, now you're actually married. Rachel starts to die too because Nikki isn't her soulmate, but it still doesn't stop everyone else dying, which doesn't make sense for several reasons. The main one being the curse at that point should have already passed out of her bloodline and into his, surely. But also, I feel like Nikki suddenly saying "I do" is not valid anymore. The original ceremony where Rachel says "I do," Nikki says no, and then in the in-between time, she changed her mind. He asked her to marry, she literally verbally refuses him, and then hours later, Nikki just says "I do." So I think in no world, supernatural, legal, or otherwise, would that be considered a complete, valid, and binding marriage ceremony, but whatever, at this point, that's the least of the show's problems. So then, Rachel and half the guests and Nikki's mum dies, and there's blood everywhere like we saw in the flash forward at the beginning, like I said. Portia also dies because she secretly married a man in Vegas and hardly told anyone, and then never bothered to get the marriage annulled. We don't care because we hate Portia. So then, this is important, Nikki, his dad, Nikki's dad, and Nikki's brother, Jules, all of them don't die. The implication being that Jules and Nell are soulmates, because they're still married even though they're getting a divorce. Before that happened, I was wondering if there was even such a thing as soulmates, because not one of her ancestors found their soulmate. You're kidding me? Not one of them, not one of Rachel's ancestors was married to their soulmate, except the one who did a ritual to turn herself into her husband's soulmate, which seems to imply it's literally impossible to be someone's soulmate unless you do actual magic to make it so. But now suddenly, Jules and Nell, the couple on the brink of divorce who hate each other, and who both have had sexual chemistry with Rachel, now they are suddenly the only soulmates we have found so far. Okay, as for Nikki and his dad, this is weird considering that both of their wives die, so Nikki's mum dies and Rachel dies. So now I'm confused about the rules of the curse, and I don't think it makes any sense. How can their wives be their soulmates, but they are not their wives' soulmates? That must mean it's about what you believe. That's what you would think. Okay, so if like one half of the soulmate can die because you're not their soulmate, but you don't die because they are your soulmate, surely soulmates, it would imply that you both are each other. So if it's one-sided soulmates, I mean, is that a thing? Maybe it's one-sided soulmates. Or maybe it's about what you believe. It seems to imply it's about what you believe. So Nikki and his dad both believed that they were married to their soulmates, but Nikki's mum and Rachel didn't. So soulmates don't exist except for how much you believe your soulmates. You'd think that's how the curse works, right? Okay. In which case, it makes no sense that zero zilch of Rachel's ancestors believed they were actually marrying their soulmate. How could they not believe that they were marrying their soulmate if they clearly believed enough to stake their life on it because they were getting married even though they knew they were cursed? Doesn't that demonstrate belief? Like, what else is a sign of belief of, I believe you're my soulmate, I'm going for it, then knowing you're going to die if they're not and doing it anyway? And none of them believed enough. So it just doesn't make sense. And then also, Jules and Nell, they believe, or Jules believes, they believe enough that they are really soulmates, even though they're getting a divorce. So out of everybody, all of Rachel's ancestors, suddenly, in one generation, we have 3 cursed people, Nikki, his dad, and his brother, who all believe they're married to their soulmates and survive the curse when it seems to have literally never happened before. What are the chances of that? Do you see what I mean? That this curse is overly convoluted and inconsistent and just doesn't make sense. You're just left baffled in the last episode, like, why is that happening? Wait, why is he dying? Why is she dying and he's not dying? Wait, you just feel like that rather than feeling like the show has a satisfying conclusion. The show also never established that belief in your soulmate was enough, but now suddenly belief is enough? Maybe, for some people. Perhaps, I guess, potentially. Does this curse have any consistent rules? I don't know, is the point. It's unclear, and not unclear in like a cool, mysterious way, like, oh, the magic is so like vague, but like powerful, and oh, it's cool that we don't have all the answers. No, not in that way. In like a, I really don't think the writers have thought this through. This is, what? In that kind of way. And it only gets more convoluted from there. Also, I know you might be thinking, oh, well, maybe the curse only applies to females in the family. If, like, Nicky, his dad, and his brother all survive and the women, like, die. No, because there's other male family members of Nicky's in the other room currently dying. The immortal witness was a man who had the curse. So, you know, that doesn't work. And also, Nell literally says to Jules, hey, why isn't the curse happening to you? Because he's not bleeding. And then he just looks at her like, because you're my soulmate. He doesn't say that, but the look is meant to convey, like, because you're my soulmate. So it does apply to men as well, because that might be the thing. Oh, maybe it just applies. No, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, then, when I tell you the curse gets convoluted. Okay. Rachel, who died because Nicky's not her soulmate, even though they had an invalid wedding. Okay, Rachel then rises from the dead because even though she married Nicky, she didn't marry him before sundown. So at sundown, she became the immortal witness. So then when the marriage was completed after sundown, even though she died from the curse, she then didn't die because she's immortal, so she came back to life, and she's now the immortal witness, cursed to witness all the weddings in Nicky's bloodline. You would think that would have made her exempt from bleeding from the curse in the first place, and, like, dying from the curse in the first place, but no, it just, like, brings her back again. I thought the curse was now Nicky's family curse. Whatever, it doesn't make sense. My personal opinion is they only did this because it makes for a really cool aesthetic. Her in her white wedding dress, dying in the snow, surrounded by a pool of red blood coming from her eyes and, like, her mouth, and the white wedding dress in the snow and the dark at night time, and there's all red, and, you know, and it is a cool aesthetic. It is cool. And it's also a cool aesthetic when she, like, rises from the dead in a now totally red wedding dress. But is it cool enough to, like, make the show even more confusing and convoluted? I don't know about that. I don't think so. Okay, so the show then ends with the old immortal witness finally allowed to die, because Rachel's now the new immortal witness, so he's, like, freed from that part of the curse. And Rachel then dresses in his old clothes, including a tie, like one of his ties. I get it. I get putting on clean, comfy clothes, like, you know, like a big shirt after you spent all night in an uncomfortable, covered in blood wedding dress. Sure. But why are you stopping to put on his tie? I get it. It's symbolic. Like, she's taken his place as the new immortal witness. But it just made me think, why would you take the time to put on his tie? Wouldn't you want to be comfy? Like, more comfy? Where are you going? Touring with pre-2005 Avril Lavigne? Anyway, the old immortal witness, before he died, as he died, Rachel then finds his dead body when she rises from the dead. He left Rachel a note saying, your turn. As in, like, she's now the witness. So she takes all his stuff, his stacks of cash, and his tie, then tells Jude, the 10-year-old, Jules' son, that she will be there to witness his wedding one day, and to be careful about who he chooses to marry. Then she leaves Nicky traumatized in their room, hugging a teddy bear, and she gets into the old immortal witness's truck and drives away as the new immortal witness in the truck that says just married with, like, blood on the back. Drives away, smoking a cigarette, listening to cool music. She smiles and throws her wedding ring out the window. She's like, smoking, aren't she cool? The end. Okay, now for everything that was just never explained and made no sense by the end of the show. So, I get it, okay? I'm going to start with saying I understand, I get it. Some people feel like it was a cool and fresh idea to take what seemed, on the surface, like a cliched story about a satanic killer family, like, oh, that's cliched, we've done that before, and then, oh, no, you're then turning it on its head by making the bride the actual cursed one. And sure, maybe it's a good idea in theory, but in practice, things have to make sense. In practice, it would make sense if you think that the family is the evil, satanic, cursed one, and then it turns out it's actually her who has the curse. In that case, so if you do that, you have to make all the weird things the family does explained by her curse. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's got to be then explained by her curse. It can't just be, oh no, it's a coincidence. Did they seem like satanic, creepy serial killers? Ha ha ha. Coincidence, silly. It was the brain tumour. And also, she's also cursed, and that's a coincidence. It's like, no, if you do it where she's the actual one bringing the darkness in, she's the cursed one, not the family, then it's got to be like all the little things that happen have got to lead back to her, you know what I mean? She's got to then be the reason for it. It then makes sense. You're like, oh, that's cool. That's a real red herring. That's how you do a twist that misleads the audience but doesn't lie to them, doesn't trick them, because you think it's them, and then it's like, it should be the kind of thing that if you watch it back, you'll be like, oh, that's really cool. I thought that was the family being creepy and weird, but actually it was her curse. This show did not do that. This show did not fucking do that, I tell you what. Okay, so I talked about this very, like, problem on Patreon in a recent video I did. Shameless plug. Subscribe, by the way. If you want to support the YouTube channel, join us over on Patreon. I did a whole review of this book, this thriller that did the same thing with, like, a bad twist where it just like misleads and lies to the audience. And I talked about in that video, again, go check it out, I'm plugging the Patreon. There's such a thing as good twists and bad twists. A good twist makes you think one thing while still giving you all the information, and at the end, when it's revealed, like I said, you should feel like, of course, I didn't see it until now, but this makes total sense. That's the only possible explanation. Oh my god, so good. That's how you should feel. And if you rewatch something that has a good twist, it'll be exciting. You will see all these little clues that you didn't understand at the time that are actually so obvious now that you know the twist. You'll be like, oh, that makes so much sense. Oh my god, it makes so much sense. It all works together, it's great. A bad twist is the opposite. A bad twist is when you get to the twist, and instead of going, oh my god, this all makes sense, how masterful of the writer to leave all the clues in front of my eyes in a way that I just didn't see until now. A bad twist is when you get to it, you go, but what about that? Hang on, then how does this earlier thing make sense? That's never explained. That plot point is left hanging. It seems like they just lied about this thing, they never explained that thing, etc. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. A good twist gives you all the pieces, and then it masterful, when it comes to the end and the twist, it slides all the pieces together and they fit perfectly, and you get a satisfying feeling of like, oh, it's like clicks nice in your brain. You're like, oh, that's great. All these little pieces, it all fits together. This beautiful puzzle that the writer has now revealed to me, their masterpiece. A bad twist is like, you get to the twist and you're like staring at it like, ugh. And the writer's like trying to jam puzzle pieces that don't fit. They don't fit in the puzzle because they've not actually made them fit and made it make sense. So they're like, oh, here's actually the picture that I was creating. And it's like all misshapen and jammed and it doesn't fit properly and there's gaps. And it's like ugly. And you're like, well, that piece doesn't fit there. You've put that piece wrong. That piece should be, I don't know. This is not the puzzle. This piece is from a different puzzle. This isn't the same. You've got loads of random jigsaw and tried to put them together and it doesn't fit, and that is not a clear picture. That is the difference between a good twist and a bad twist, okay? In other words, a bad twist has to lie to you in order to pull it off, and you are left thoroughly unsatisfied at the end because the writer had to trick you earlier in the story, and now those earlier things make no sense. Basically, it sets up a different story. It's not misdirection, it's just lying to the audience, telling them a completely different story, and then you get to the twist, and rather than everything slotting into place, it just feels like a rug pull and like they lied about plot points just to get you to believe them. And they don't explain things properly. It's just like, yeah, forget about that clue and that clue. Those were irrelevant and that meant nothing. We were just trying to get you to think one thing, but actually now, now it doesn't matter to the plot. Just forget about it. With all that in mind, I'm going to go through. Here are some things that were never explained. In the show, something very bad is going to happen. Or never adequately explained. Or really fucking insufficiently explained in a way that makes no sense. Let's go through it. If the family wasn't trying to kill her, why did Nikki's mother and Jules stroke Rachel's bareback in the same way like they were some weird, hungry demon spawn? We don't know. Why did Nikki's mother cry, tell Rachel about a family member being buried alive, and then tell Rachel that she's so sorry for what this will do to them both? I know she's dying, but that's not a reason. That's just not how normal non-satanic people act. I'm sorry. I know they're gonna be like, oh yeah, but get it? Because it was because she's like dying and they didn't know she was dying. So that's why she fucking stroked Rachel's face, was like, my great-grandmother was buried alive. And then was like, I'm so sorry for what this will do to you. Saying, oh no, it was just because she was dying and she felt bad. That's bollocks. That's not, no, that's not. You've clearly tried to tell us something else. That when you watch it back, it doesn't make sense. You're like, oh yeah, this is obviously a woman dying from a fucking brain tumour. That's how she would act. You're telling us she's a Satanist witch. That is literally what the writers are trying to do in that moment. That they've got something nefarious going on, and then you're like, haha, tee, no. I'll go on. There's more. There's more things that don't make sense with this in mind. They're just trying to jam the puzzle pieces to make it fit later on in a way that doesn't. They're lying to you. Going on. Why did Jude, the 10-year-old kid, tell Rachel that she had no idea what was going on in their family? The context of that is that she tells him, she's like, look, Jude, the sorry man is just an urban legend. He's not real. And then Jude says that. You have no idea what's going on in this family. So the implication there being that something supernatural or dark or evil is going on in their family that she doesn't know about. That's the implication. That seems to make why the kid said that. There's a reason. That doesn't, when you watch it back, you don't go, oh, obviously his grandmother was dying. That's why he said that. It's lying to you. It's not misdirection. It's not like, oh, that makes sense with the new context. No, it's just like, what the fuck is he talking about then? I know his grandma's dying, but this still doesn't make sense why he would just tell her that she doesn't understand about the family or what's happening when talking about a serial killer. We're just getting too many creepy things trying to be explained away by a brain tumour or a coincidence. And that's just not really good enough. Other thing, why were Nikki and Rachel getting married in the same place her parents were? If that was ever explained, it wasn't explained good enough because I don't remember. Was it just death and fate? And it was a coincidence again. And Jules watching Rachel's mother die and Rachel being born, was that just another coincidence? And then she happened to be marrying his brother. Was that just another coincidence? Why the fuck did Rachel climb into a dark box before her and Nikki had sex? No idea. Never explained. Why was that never explained? I tried looking online for an answer for that. It was so weird, but like many other things you think is going somewhere in the show, it just never does, and it's never brought up again.
So since filming this, I did actually see that apparently, I don't know who it was, whether the writer or the actors, I think they said in an interview that the whole box scene with Rachel was her dealing with her anxiety or something. First of all, it's never explained in the show, and it's never come back to. I think that's a stupid reason to put that in, because it's never explained as anxiety. It never comes up again, and it's clearly put in with the other weird stuff to be like, oh, what the hell, something weird and spooky is going on, and they never explain it in the show, and then afterwards they're just like, oh yeah, she was just anxious, don't worry about it. I mean, look, if you have journalists and people who watch the show having no idea what that scene was about and having to go out of their way to ask the writers or actors to clarify what that scene was, and they have to explain it, then it's not good writing. You've not done a good job of showing what it is within the show. You can't rely on explaining things outside of the narrative. And it's not just me who was confused. I couldn't find anyone online who knew what the fuck that was about. I was looking at Reddit, I was looking at articles, until I found an article where they were referencing asking the actors themselves what it was supposed to be. That's not good. Like, that just demonstrates just how badly they got across that message and how confusing it was and how it just wasn't explained. But within the show, I don't count that, because within the show, it is never explained, and it's set up to be one of those other weird, creepy things. And as we'll come to later, there's other articles I found with the writer basically like admitting that certain stuff she put in at the beginning is literally just to misdirect people. So I'm correct. It's like there's no actual build-up or clever thing. It's just like, oh, how can we trick people? She not literally said that, but that's basically what she's saying in different words. So we'll get to those articles later.
Other thing, if his family weren't occult practitioners, why did they have weird traditions like being unable to look the dead dogs in the eyes? I get it, one of these things can be explained away as like, oh, they're just a weird family, but all of these little things adding up, you can't just be like, oh, they're just quirky. No, you were lying to us and trying to convince us that they're satanic killers or something, or witches. Like, you can't look the dead dogs in the eyes because their souls will get you or whatever. I don't know. Like, why did Portia have a witchcraft book? They're not into devil worship or anything, but Portia has a witchcraft book in her room. Okay, why did Nikki's mum give a creepy speech about souls and immortality and how marriage is like being sewn together? Just more coincidences. They're just quirky. Also, it's just a coincidence that Jude built a Wicker Man effigy of Rachel to hang in the woods. Again, that whole plot point felt like another trick. Maybe technically it's not a lie, because you're like, oh, it's just plausible enough that Jude, maybe a 10-year-old by himself, could have built that thing and then hung it high up in the woods at night by himself through some weird convoluted fucking logic that doesn't make sense to an adult, never mind a 10-year-old. Technically maybe not a lie, but it feels like it. It feels like they lied to us in that moment with that plot point. It's just way too convenient. So, like I said, in one day, this kid built an effigy, strung it high up in the trees. I can't get over how ridiculous that part was. It was so high up. I think an adult would have struggled to do that alone and build it by, like, it feels lazy and like they wanted the aesthetic of creepy cult stuff without actually doing creepy cult stuff. I was really pissed off because I saw that image in the promo. They had like the wooden effigy that's then burning, and you're like, oh my god, something weird culty's going on. And it's just like a 10-year-old just built a stick figure because of an urban legend. And when I'll tell you later where they burned her, and it's so dumb. It's like, you just telling lies. It's stupid, it's not clever. I don't feel like, wow, that was some clever misdirection from the writers. They really had me believing one thing when it was actually something else. Oh, so clever. No, I just feel lied to. You clearly and obviously wrote them as a satanic family and then tried to like retcon it later on and tried to explain it away with a tumour and Nikki's mum being an obsessed boy mum. Which I get it. Boy mums are scary, but not enough to explain why the whole family were acting like witches. The baby and pregnancy symbolism in the show was also totally unsatisfying. I suppose technically you can say that the symbolism of the pregnancy and babies was setting up the reveal of Rachel's mum's emergency C-section. But as that was revealed halfway through the series, and also had nothing to do with like the curse, it was just a coincidence that she happened to be pregnant at that point. And that's how Rachel was born, it just doesn't feel that impactful. It's something not relevant to Rachel in the present. It should be like, if you have something that huge of a theme, I don't think really, to be honest with you, it's good enough that the where that theme is going is, oh, she just happened to be pregnant with the curse. Like that, they made such a big deal out of mothers and pregnancy and children and babies, that it feels like that should have been an intrinsic part of the curse or something supernatural, is babies and pregnancy mothers. Do you know what I mean? Like, they set it up that way. It's just like, oh, it's just Rachel's mum was pregnant when she died. It's not really good enough. It just doesn't feel that impactful. Like I said, it's not relevant to Rachel in the present. Like, it reveals something about her past, but why are we getting all this in the present? I suppose you could argue it's setting up maybe, like, the fact that Nikki's mum is an obsessed boy mum, but even then that's really tenuous, and it's not supernatural. The way they're setting up is like there's a supernatural reason for these things, but then it's like Nikki's mum she's just a bit narcissistic and she's obsessed with her children. It's not enough there. Like, you're setting up a horror thing with pregnancy or with babies or with motherhood, and to just be like, his mum's a bit weird. And then Rachel's mum, like, dying when pregnant. I'm sorry, it's just... And also, as Rachel's mum's death and being pregnant, that was revealed and then dropped halfway through the series, all the baby stuff. It just felt like that theme didn't really go anywhere, especially not enough to justify how much they emphasised it. So, some of the things that weren't explained. Who put the pregnant dead fox in the bathroom and then magically opened the locked door behind Rachel so she would see it? Was it Death himself? Well, that was very kind of him to foreshadow later story events of how Rachel's mother died. Or was it the witness? Was it the immortal witness that did that? And if so, why? And then why and how did he magically open the door with telekinesis? Like, we don't know. It's never fucking explained. I guess it's death. I guess that's it's death, maybe. But then why? Like, it's not enough. It's not satisfying enough. And death is not even a threat. He's not even like a real threat. It's not like it's just... Why would he... And why, if he's not... Death's not meant to be scary. It's just like this curse. Why is he leaving fucking creepy, satanic, witch symbols of dead pregnant foxes in bathrooms for Rachel to find? He's not... Like, it... How about the baby? The baby that they found alone at night under a lamppost with creepy music playing in the car. That is never explained. Oh, sorry, it is, but only as a coincidence, which is a totally unsatisfying explanation if you're writing a horror or a thriller. You cannot spend a huge chunk of the runtime setting up that particular scene as being a huge piece of the puzzle, especially when it fits thematically with everything else. So you've got all this baby and pregnancy stuff and everything's building, all this weird stuff going around in this area, and then that scene, when it fits thematically so well, because it's about a baby and it's creepy and you don't know what's going on, you can't set it up as a piece of the puzzle and then just like hand wave it away and never address it again. Because like, oh, tee-hee, red herring, the creepy baby under the lamppost was actually just a coincidence that happened to Rachel just as all this other supernatural stuff is happening to her. So that just had no relevance to the greater supernatural plotline and the horror going on, or like any conspiracy or anything. That led nowhere. That had nothing to do. Why did deathly? What, like, was it fate? What? And then, like, we don't even see it on screen because they want you to think Nikki's lying. They're lying to us by wanting us to think Nikki's lying because we never see the baby's family come back for the baby. But that turned out he was telling the truth. But the fact they don't show it on screen and they set him up as suspicious, they're just lying to us. They were like, oh no, that didn't really happen. That's not how it happened. That's what the show's trying to tell you. But that's not really what happened. But then it actually is really what happened. It is not satisfying for the audience to not weave that in with the rest of the story. So I kept watching through the later bad episodes, partly because I wanted all of those things from episode 1 to be explained that are just dropped and then never revisited again. I was just desperate for them to be explained. Even though we never saw the baby's parents return to collect it, like I said, I guess Nikki was just telling the truth when he told Rachel that he was punched in the face and they came back for their baby. And they really did just leave their baby in the freezing cold in the middle of the night playing loud music to just go on a fucking walk. The fact that this happens off screen, it's setting up so clearly that they want you to think Nikki is suspicious and lying in that moment. And that doesn't make a good twist if you reveal that actually he wasn't lying, but there's no other good alternate explanation. Just a bit of neglectful parenting, and the creepy baby under the lamppost actually had nothing to do with the supernatural setup of this film. What the fuck? Yeah, nothing else to see here. We tried to set this up as having a cool, mysterious explanation, but actually no, these parents really did leave their baby to go on a walk in the snow in the middle of the night at a rest stop. And we spent time on that plot point, even though we actually reveal later it's not at all part of the plot. Just because we wanted Nikki to seem suspicious and like his family is a cult. And like there's something weird with babies and pregnancy going on for some reason, even though there isn't. Thanks, I hate it. So when I said that the baby was never addressed again, I actually completely forgot about this because, I mean, it was just such a nothing that it's not even worth mentioning, practically. It is addressed again, but only again about halfway through the series. I think it's about episode 5 or something, where the baby's parents come to Rachel and Nikki's wedding. I'm serious, that's it. And they think that's concluding the plot point. The baby's parents are just here at the wedding now. Oh, and it's like briefly mentioned as like a throwaway comment. And they think that's an adequate conclusion. And not even at the end, like halfway through the series, to like this huge mystery they set up at the beginning. It's just like actually pathetic writing. And what about the mini Barbie shoe? The mini Barbie shoe that Rachel found in the bathroom that was the same as the one mentioned on the serial killer podcast that Nikki put on for her in the car that same day. What the hell is the explanation for that? What? Speaking of, that's my biggest gripe with the show. They made such a big deal out of Coldie's, the creepy custard shop with the serial killer founder. It came up again and again in this series, and it is literally completely fucking irrelevant. It was such a big deal from episode 1. Like, and it comes up again and again. Jude, the kid, at one point in the show, he is wearing a top with the Coldie's logo at one point. It keeps coming up. The footage of their parents' wedding, they go to Coldie's, and they run into the creepy guy who works there. Nikki and Rachel at the beginning of the show listen to the podcast about it. Rachel finds the Barbie shoe, like in the podcast. She knew the logo for some fucking unknown reason. She magically knew the logo, even though she'd never been there before. And none of it goes anywhere. Significance of that? Nothing. Cold. Just there to add ambiance for some reason. To be like, ooh, creepy things happen in this area. There was a serial killer here once, by the way. Oh, that's cool. What's the relevance of that to the plot? Nothing. I just thought I'd tell you. Isn't it cool? No, you disgust me. How did Rachel magically know how to draw the exact Coldie's logo, even though she'd never seen it before? No, that's something else. Never explained. I guess you could argue that maybe she knew it either because she's psychic. Like, the show kind of toys around with that idea. Not that she's psychic, but that she, like, has intuition. But, like, it's not that she ever has visions or that it's enough of a plot point to justify her, like, knowing this random fucking custard place logo. It doesn't make sense. It's not enough of a thing. So maybe you could say, oh, it's like she's intuitive. Okay? That's not really good enough. Or you could argue that because of that intuition, she remembered it from being a baby in her mum's tummy because of her mum's memory or something when her mum was in the same area and she was picking up on that. I don't know, like, it doesn't make sense. And it sucks because I was expecting a really cool explanation. For how Rachel knew the Coldie's logo. And remember that first day when she got to Nikki's house, she said, I'm having deja vu, but like bad deja vu. Everything feels so familiar. And she knew the Coldie's logo. And then she's like, I feel like something really bad's gonna happen. And then it's like, there's no cool explanation. It's not like, oh, she's been there before. It's not good when you can think of cooler twists than the real one. So if you can't tell, I was pissed off enough at this show already because it just doesn't make any sense before I came across this article by The Tab, article called The Real Reason the Creepy Ice Cream Man is in Something Very Bad is Gonna Happen. Below that it says, he doesn't seem to have any relevance. Yeah, he fucking doesn't. Okay, so Netflix's creepy new horror, Something Very Bad is Gonna Happen, is a chilling story about the week leading up to an unfortunate wedding, and one of the most eerie parts is the strange ice cream man. But why is he actually in it? The creator has revealed the real reason, and the real reason is exactly what I said. It's literally just to trick you. There is nothing else. Larry Poole, the ice cream man who actually sells custard at his stall called Coldie's, is introduced in the opening scenes as a serial killer who murdered 3 women in the 90s. Nikki tells Rachel about the story, and she then listens to a podcast from a woman who was almost killed by him while driving. So, like, this is such a fundamental plot thing. It, like, right at the beginning of episode 1, this comes up, okay? And then it's throughout the whole fucking show. I just want you guys to understand. However, he doesn't end up having any relevance to the story at all. You think he's going to have something to do with the horror that's going on at the Cunningham house, but there's no link, apart from the fact that Rachel and her mum both saw the same stall. There's no link except coincidence. That's what the show boils down to. Oh, you thought there was a clever connection going on behind the scenes, some greater story arc? No, coincidence! Ha! Rachel and her mum both see the same ice cream stall. Oh my god, what magnificent storytelling. Oh. Okay, continuing. It gets worse. So that's him, Coldie's ice cream man. Speaking to Variety, the creator and showrunner Hayley Z. Boston revealed... I said Z the American way. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. Forgive me my sins. But then it sounds weird, Hayley Z. Boston. Whatever, Hayley Z. Boston revealed he's actually just a clever... Oh my god, I can't. The creator and showrunner revealed he's actually just a clever red herring to throw you off and keep you wondering who the sorry man is. Quoting her, he's definitely a red herring. He never comes back again. I liked the idea of this figure who has haunted Rachel's past and the Cunningham's past. You see Jude wearing a Coldie shirt in episode 4. There was some speculation in the writer's room that Larry Poll had something to do with the Cunninghams funding his first custard stand, she said. The idea behind him, especially in the pilot, was to introduce a few creepy male figures so the sorry man reveal lands at the end. You're wondering, is it the guy in the bar? Is it him? Is he the Coldie serial killer? Is it Nikki's dad? Who is the sorry man? Then we decided to connect him to Rachel's past. So I was right. You guys just fucking made this up as you went along. You're just speculating in the right direction. Oh, maybe he's a bit connected. Let's just add him in for shits and giggles to try and confuse people. No reason. The idea behind him is literally what she's saying there. She's covered it up with different words. The idea behind him, especially in the pilot, is to just throw you off the scent. So the sorry man reveal lands at the end. Well, I hate to break it to you, the sorry man reveal doesn't really land. I actually never connected. It's not actually even well done in that way. I literally never connected the serial killer and Coldies with the sorry man. I mean, maybe it sounds obvious as I'm like explaining the plot of the story, but honestly, like when you watch the show, it wasn't really obvious to me that you were supposed to think that maybe the sorry man was the same Coldies guy, because there's so much other stuff going on that they put in to like confuse you and throw you off the scent. I was just more concerned with all the baby symbolism and stuff. And thought the sorry man, I don't know, was going to be in some way connected to that, and that the ice cream shop had some greater purpose than this urban legend of the sorry man, genuinely, because it was such a huge looming thing. And then we find out from the showrunner, oh no, it's a quote, it's a clever red herring. There's nothing clever about this. They're just throwing anything at the wall in the writer's room and seeing what sticks. She literally just admitted, he's just a red herring. He never comes back again. I just did this to trick the audience. I have no respect for this. I have no respect for these people. It sounds hard. I'm so pissed off with this show, honestly. Oh my god. It's such bad storytelling. It's just like, yeah, we just did it for no reason. It doesn't mean anything. We just added it in just to try and confuse you and bamboozle you. But they made it such a huge thing that it makes no sense that it's got no greater connection. And it's a coincidence that beggars belief. It's such an impossible coincidence that both Rachel and her mum both were there, but then it's still not connected to the wider plot. Okay, so continuing this article. So that's why she recognised, this is the most stupid part. So that's why she, talking about Rachel, so that's why she recognises the logo in the car at the start, because her mother saw it. I wanted to establish that connection to her mother early on, Boston said. The creator said she'd love to do a second series, so maybe that she could explore more of Larry's creepy backstory, if he has one. Maybe he's just a sweet old custard seller. I highly doubt it. What a stupid article. So it's literally just admitting I was right. That's such a stupid reason. The reason that Rachel can draw the logo isn't some supernatural cool reason, or like she's been to this place before and that's why she recognises the Coldies logo and there's some, something nefarious going on. No, it's because her mother, this is so stupid, when her mother was pregnant with her mother saw the Coldies logo. And bearing in mind, the Coldies logo has nothing to do with the greater plot. It has no relevance to the curse or anything. So her mum just was pregnant, happened to see a logo, and then it infused through the bond between mother and unborn child into a Rachel remembering the logo and drawing it as an adult. Which, okay, like, I'm not saying that idea of a kid picking up on stuff that in itself is inherently stupid. I think there's a way that could have been done intelligently, but you can't have it that literally the only thing she picks up is like the fucking Coldies logo when it's got no relevance. It's no relevance to the greater plot, and she just remembered it because her mum saw it when she was pregnant with her. That's not how pregnancy works, guys. And I get it, it's a supernatural show, but that's such a stupid reason. They could have had such a better reason why Rachel recognised the logo, and I thought it was going somewhere really cool, and it's actually just tricked you. But it's not. It's like they dragged this on for so long. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop because I'm making this video so much longer because I've been ranting about this for so. This article is so stupid. This is so stupid. I'm so angry that it's. I have no respect. I have no respect for the creators of the show. They literally were just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. The reason all of these things that I just said that are never fucking explained, the reason they don't work for me as red herrings or like clues is there is not a satisfying alternate explanation. The problem was, due to all the reasons I mentioned, they set up a different show than it ended up being. The relationship dynamic, right, between Nicky and his family and Rachel could be somewhat interesting in like a show if, one, they hadn't dragged it out for so long and repeated character arcs and plot points. And also, it's just not the show that was promised or set up. Is a curse with death the worst idea? No, but it is when you leave loads of unanswered questions and no real threat. The execution was not good. After episode 2, the show dragged, meandered, had no point, was convoluted, felt more like a teen drama than a horror, and was just so boring. And it made no sense, nonsensical. So I honestly thought that Rachel and Nikki were going to be related. And the reason I thought this was because it's established really near the beginning of episode 1 that Rachel had no family and she didn't know her origins. So my first thought was, oh my god, that's got to be the reason that Nikki's family are interested in her, and this is going to be like some devil cult thing. Or maybe, you know, like, I don't know, maybe her mum was involved with it and that kind of thing, making deals with devils or witches, you promise them your firstborn child or something like that. And I thought that was going to be like all the baby symbolism, all the babies and pregnancy and stuff, and like that's in mythology again and again. It's like you promise the devil or a witch your firstborn child. And maybe it would have been something really cool with that. Like maybe Rachel had been promised and that's why they wanted her. And she was like related in some way to them or part of their extended family cult thing. And she was like, you know, had been promised, whatever. Or maybe her child would be. Do you know what I mean? Like her firstborn, like, I don't know. And my boyfriend had a really great point as we were watching episode 1, when we were still excited, when we still had hope in the world and joy before it was taken from us. He had a great point when we were watching the first episode. So it was the moment where Rachel was perfectly drawing the Coldies logo, despite never having seen it before. And she was saying she felt weird and, you know, whatever. And then later on that she had a feeling that everything was familiar and something bad was going to happen. So my boyfriend suggested at that point that maybe she'd been through this several times. Or even just once before and it had failed. So they'd like taken her memory or her memory had gone and they were doing it again, like trying to drag her into the family again until she married Nikki willingly or something. Like maybe the whole thing was she had to willingly marry Nikki and then it didn't work. She found out all this dark stuff maybe the first time, so they're doing it again, and that's why she has this feeling like, oh, I feel like something really bad's gonna happen. And then how do you know this? You've never been here before, but she knows all like the local stuff and can draw the creepy logo perfectly. It would even be cool if like some of this stuff she was seeing, like the baby in the car and the street lamp, I don't even care if that didn't like literally happen. You know, if it had turned out later that her mind had like invented that symbolically, if like the baby wasn't really there, but like her mind had symbolically invented it as like it was something that, like a memory of something that had happened before, something creepy with a baby, and it was like trying to warn her or something, and that's why the baby and Nikki were gone when she came back. You know what I mean? That would have been cool. I wouldn't even care if it had been like that kind of explanation that some of this thing she's seeing isn't like real, but it's like they just didn't even, like, nothing was explained. So yeah, I thought maybe that's hence why she remembered weird stuff, she remembered the logo, she felt like she'd had deja vu. She literally says that, I feel like I've been here before. That's something else that's unexplained. She said, this feels so like deja vu, but bad. It feels so familiar, and I know this logo perfectly, but that's never explained. Maybe it's her parents. She magically knew because her parents she was born there, sort of. Okay, that's a shit explanation. God. Anyway, and that's why I thought that maybe Nikki and Rachel were related in some way. Like, his wife that maybe had to marry him willingly, maybe it had to be from her bloodline, like not just any bride, but from like this specific bloodline. I was so hoping that this was going to be like some Rosemary's Baby Antichrist type thing, with the weird pregnancy stuff and the babies and like the motherhood and the mother saying, you absorb your children. You like, all this creepy stuff is leading up to your thinking, oh my god, like Antichrist, Rosemary's Baby, weird pregnancy stuff, devil child. The actual story was so much less satisfying than what was set up in the first episode. And sure, like, a satanic family isn't the most original concept, but like, that doesn't matter if you make it good enough and fresh enough and well constructed enough. What is wrong with a fresh take on a Rosemary's Baby style story? It's so good. Like, Rosemary's Baby, I'm not actually seen the film, but I read the book. The book is so good. I'm sure there's been like similar things done since, but it's not, I don't think it's been done to death. And you could, especially if you did something really cool with it that can't, like, just a completely fresh, cool, weird take on a Rosemary's Baby type thing. It doesn't matter if the concept isn't the most original thing. If the execution is fresh and a Rosemary's Baby type thing or something like that, or baby sacrifice, I don't know. Something like that, though, that would also make sense with all of the baby symbolism in the first couple of episodes. Especially as near the beginning, like I said, her and Nikki have a whole conversation about kids, and Nikki is very keen and like pushing for babies and stuff, and Rachel describes it, her description is, I don't want to be torn open. So you would think that's foreshadowing that's going to go somewhere. I mean, it is, like with her mum, been torn open, I guess, later, but for how much they're building it up, and the fact it's not relevant to Rachel, and it's not relevant to the wider supernatural plot, it just feels lackluster, like, oh, is that it? I thought for sure it was going to be that they were like sacrificing babies or something, or giving their firstborns to the devil, I don't know. I thought the lone baby by the lamppost had something to do with it, and the pregnant fox in the loos by the rest stop, I thought that could have been a sacrifice too, like a pregnant fox, you sacrifice that, it's like a symbol of something, or like... And I was so excited for whatever the Coldies connection was going to be, because I was like, oh, I just can't see where this is going, this is so great, and it just never went anywhere. Clearly they didn't know where it was going either. I was like, this is so fresh and cool, and where the creepy custard place, what's the connection with all this? Wow, where... Nothing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you could make it so that Nikki's family owned Coldies. It was that the serial killer was in Nikki's family, was one of his family members, and maybe Rachel was the baby of the pregnant woman that he tried to kill back years ago because the family were trying to get their hands on her then. Because they were like, this baby's been promised to us. I don't know, but maybe that's why he went after Rachel's. You can make Rachel's mum, and then she got away. And then later on, that was why her mother died because they had her killed later on. And then they're trying again to get her back in the fold with her being an adult and engaged to Nikki. Her mum could have been escaping their devil cult with a ritualistically important child to them. Maybe that is Rachel with who knows who her father is. You know what I mean? And that's why like she's like seen as theirs and important. I don't know, but that ties it together. And then you could also that'd be a reason why Nikki put the Barbie shoe in the loos and played the podcast just to fuck with her, maybe just fuck with her head, or maybe it was even her subconscious. I don't know. Or like I guess she'd be too little to remember anything about the Barbie shoe as a little baby. In her, she wouldn't even see that still in utero. But yeah, I just really thought that was gonna go somewhere. Like I can't say it's so. I tell you why this show disappointed me so much. That moment where Rachel, they find the baby in the lamppost, all these weird things are happening in the first episode. It was so good, it was so creepy. You have no idea where things are going. You're like, the Coldie's custard shop, Rachel magically knows the logo, all these things, like she's been here before. The podcast with the little Barbie shoe, she goes into the loos. The moment where she knelt down, it was so scary. I scare easy, but when she's in those bathrooms and she sees the Barbie shoe and she kneels down and picks it up off the floor and you see that it's a tiny Barbie shoe, that moment my stomach dropped. I was like, oh my God. Like, but like in a good way, like in a thrilling way. I was like, oh my God, it's like a Barbie shoe like in the podcast. What does that mean? You're like, what does that mean? That's so good. What does it mean? How does it all connect? And then it doesn't, and that's why it's so disappointing, because it was set up so well. It was set up to be so exciting and interesting. And you have that thrill of like, oh my God, like the moment it was so, and then it was just so disappointing. And then also, like, I don't know, I thought it was really going to go somewhere like that with, again, his family being creepy or weird, or Nikki fucking with her. And the pervy witness that perved on her in the other bar, asking her, are you sure he's the one? Rather than as like a thing of warning about a soulmate fucking death curse. I thought it was going to be, warning about her about their fake relationship in some way. That Nikki's like not really who he pretends to be. Are you sure he's the one? Are you sure? Like that's like some kind of warning, or you know what I mean about his. And that's clearly what the show wanted you to think as well. Which would have been fine if the alternative they set up was better than what they delivered, and it wasn't. They promised a fine dining experience, a 3-course meal, delicious, luxury, high-quality food, wonderfully sourced, homemade. And then they delivered gruel, slop, fast food slop. Except it wasn't even fast, it dragged on. I just think that's how you tie it all in. I don't even care if, I'm not saying that that's the best explanation ever. I just wanted everything to be tied in and make sense rather than just left unexplained. I don't know, and the custard, maybe the custard place, Coldie's a custard place, maybe it had something nefarious about it that you tie in with the rest of the story. Maybe there's something nefarious about the custard itself, or like the front, maybe the business, it's a front for something. That's not a bad idea in a story about child sacrifice if you're going that route. Having a brand aimed at families that lures in families and children, I don't know, with something dark going on behind the scenes. I don't know, whatever. Point is, tie it in. Give it something. Give me something. Don't give me nothing. But I do like the idea of marriage between her and Nikki being like ritualistically important. It really felt like it was going to be ritualistically important. And it wasn't. But I like the idea it's ritualistically important, but she's got to agree willingly. And then maybe she later discovers or realises that she's been out there before, but discovered their dark goings on. So they took away her memory and tried again to get her willingly to marry Nikki. And it's all this facade and this act. And maybe all these weird things like the baby under the lamppost or the man in the bar. Maybe some of these things aren't happening even in reality. And that's why it could be really cool. Like she's almost losing her grip and kind of going a bit crazy, but it's like weird memories that her brain can't deal with, that was like locked away after whatever happened to her, whatever, maybe it's that, like trying to warn her again, trying to break out. I just think that could have been so cool, like things that she knows but doesn't know she knows, like the dead fox in the bathroom. Maybe it's not even there, but it's her mind trying to warn her. Maybe she saw something like that with a human. The dead pregnant fox is like ripped open, maybe, you know what I mean? And it's like her brain trying to tell her things in a way that, I just think it could have been something like that, and it would have been really cool. Like, give us a reason, rather than, I don't know why there was a dead pregnant fox in the bathroom, it's never explained. And the baby under the lamppost, I think, again, either there's a real reason for that, or it's like her subconscious, like trying to warn her, or giving her like a symbol, because it felt like that at the time. It felt like an omen or a dream sequence. So it wouldn't even be that weird if like maybe it never really happened, and she kind of hallucinated it or imagined it or whatever. It could have been cool if that whole thing had happened, and then she got back to Nikki and said, where's the baby? And rather than him going, the family came and took it. I don't know if he's like, what baby? What are you talking about? You went to like get something, you know what I mean? I don't know what, but just something, anything that ties all of these story threads together in a satisfying way, rather than dropping more than half of them and moving on to a totally different story. It would also explain, if though he had the weird, like, culty conspiracy thing going on, why his siblings were so weird meeting her. If they had met her before, or they just saw her as a sacrifice or a tool, or maybe some of them felt bad. I don't know. They just so clearly wanted you to think that they were there's something nefarious was going on with them, and there wasn't. Like I said, the whole show felt like a trick and not a good one. I already said this, but the shots of the burning effigy of the Rachel effigy and the promo and stuff, that felt like a trick. Like they're trying to be a cult show, like I said, the culty aesthetic and the witchy aesthetic without going through with it. Because sure, the effigy does burn at one point, but do you want to know the context? The context, like the effigy that Jude made, for some reason, it makes no sense. And they so clearly made this decision just for the aesthetic of having a burning effigy, but without actually having a reason for it. Rachel's like, oh, let's have a family therapy session, and then we'll burn the effigy as we like burn our past patterns or trauma or something. I don't fucking know. And then they burn the effigy of Rachel as like a healing moment. Makes no sense on no level. But also, again, it just pisses me off because it just seems so much like the writer's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had this aesthetic of a burning effigy, but like for no real plot reason. So we're gonna kind of shoehorn it in there, so we trick people into thinking it's about a cult and it's not. It was just pissed me off. And it was like, what the hell? Why do they have an impromptu therapy session? I get the point that the show is trying to make. I'm not stupid. It's a commentary on the horror of dysfunctional families and marrying into one and taking on all their issues and seeing it as your emotional burden to fix at your own detriment. And then at the end, you're finally choosing yourself and freeing yourself from that cycle and, you know, from the toxic mothers and their dynamic with their daughters-in-laws. Don't marry a man who idolizes his narcissistic mother. Message received. It was just the most ham-fisted, unsubtle, bad way to make this commentary. It wasn't subtle or clever or any more original than if you had just made the family fucking Satanists, as you clearly wanted to do. This show thought it was more clever than it was. Ooh, the real horror is that they're just a dysfunctional family. And wasn't that the real Satanism all along? No, not really. Not when you don't do it well. Not when I expected something actually scary and nefarious. Not when things don't make sense. I sort of see some people online like praising the show and like, oh, but it was so clever how you thought it was like evil or satanic, and then it was like, they're just a dysfunctional family. It's such a critique on like modern family. Not when it doesn't make sense, and when you promise me supernatural, horror, and it's like, oh, his mum's just a bit weird. Yeah, but it doesn't even make sense for how weird they were being, for the fucking effigy and I'm really trying to rein it back here, guys. It's just not as cool an explanation. I just don't think it's that clever or cool. The real Satanism is family dysfunction. I will contrast now this show with two horror films I've seen recently. And bearing in mind, I am not, like, I wouldn't say I'm not a horror connoisseur. I'm not a horror fan. I don't really like horror as a general rule. I like spooky things. I like ghost stories. I like scary. I don't like needlessly gore or like something that feels like just so dark and depressing or gruesome. Not my thing. But spooky. I like scary. I like thrillers. I like mystery and tension. And that's why I thought this show was going to be really cool and it wasn't. So, just that disclaimer. I'm not saying I'm like a big horror fan or anything. But I think I do have a good idea of what makes a good story. So, contrasting this show with two horror films I've seen recently, Backrooms and Obsession. So, Obsession is clearly a commentary on modern dating, infatuation, and the illusion of somebody versus the reality of somebody. It was just done in a way that didn't need to be spelled out and dragged out, in the way that Something Very Bad Is Going to Happen did with its message. With like endless arguments and over-explaining. And I think it's a good comparison in a way, actually, because you can draw comparisons with Rachel's fiancé Nikki from Something Very Bad Is Going to Happen, and with Bear, the protagonist of Obsession. They were both, on the surface, nice guys who saw themselves as true romantics who could treat a girl right and do the right thing, but actually both of them were pretty self-centered, cowardly, and weak, which led to the downfall of their romantic life. They both saw their partners as more of an illusion than who she actually was, and a way to kind of add to their own sense of self-worth, or, you know, whatever it to be. Both of them were very deceitful because of how weak-willed they were. They hid things and they weren't honest about things. They just kind of wanted to be liked and have their own needs met. Obsession was a story which signposted things, had an arc, and didn't lie or let the audience down with a story it promised. And that's not the same thing as predictable. It just means it fulfills its promises. If it signposts something, if it tells you it's going to go this way, if it emphasizes a theme to the death, like Something Very Bad's going to happen with fucking babies and pregnancy, if it emphasizes something so much, the show is making a promise to you when it does that, or the movie is making a promise to you when it emphasizes a theme or signposts something. Now, that promise could go in a different way than you expected. It could be unpredictable. It could subvert something or be a twist on something or have something like unexpected, but it must fulfill those promises. Otherwise, it's telling you lies. Something very bad's going to happen. It's like a bad partner that whispers sweet nothings into your ear. It doesn't mean any of them. So Backrooms is similar in the way it also had an underlying non-supernatural commentary, just like Obsessions with dating. So Backrooms, it was like a commentary on hopelessness in life, on loneliness, on the drudgery of your working life, or in endless corporate backrooms, that kind of thing. Nostalgia, like the past, things like the unconscious, things buried, things you don't deal with. It was a commentary on something else. The whole movie, Backrooms, is about his self-destructive tendencies and how the protagonist hurt himself and everyone around him, manifesting as a monster. But it didn't fake out the audience. It didn't pretend to be a horror at the beginning and then fake out and turn into a therapy session, even though there are actually literally several therapy sessions in the film. Like Obsession, Backrooms utilised the horror to get across those messages. It exaggerates something, it takes something to a horrifying extreme to make a point about something real. Something very bad is going to happen did the opposite. You thought it was going to be an exaggerated horror of something real, like making a commentary on something, but then it was just like lackluster. It was like a step below that. It was like, oh no, they're just dysfunctional actually. Isn't that the real horror? It's like, no, take it to a place of real horror. Take it to a place of real horror. And then, like, we'll get the underlying commentary on, like, a toxic family dynamic. But you've obviously taken to it to, like, an extreme with something supernatural going on. Maybe it's, I don't know, a commentary on, like, mothers being unable to let go of their children, of feeling absorbed by their children, of feeling like their children, they like, mothers who, like, are overbearing and consume their children with how overbearing they are. Maybe you literally take it to the horrifying extreme and make it, like, was implied in something very bad is going to happen, absorbing your children. Maybe you literally go that far and it's like some horrible, that extent. That's what horror, like, does. The same with, I've never actually seen it, but from what I understand, the same concept is done in, what is that film with Demi Moore, I think, and the body horror one with the young girl, and then she becomes younger, and it's all like body horror and stuff. But it's like a commentary on beauty and like changing your body, constantly trying to look younger, and then it becomes like horrific. It's like, but it's actual horror. So point being, Backrooms utilised the horror to get across the real life underlying messages. It didn't do like a bait and switch, like, isn't mental health the real horror all along? Like, yes, in a symbolic sense, but also like, no, not as scary as being literally been chased through an endless parallel world like an uncanny pirate monster. Both of those movies, Backrooms and Obsession, they felt fresh and new. They weren't bloated. I just wonder if services like Netflix have gotten too comfortable and self-indulgent and just drag stuff out. I think Backrooms and Obsession, they signposted the horror to come, they made initial promises to the audience, and then they fulfilled those promises. It's the worst thing you can do in storytelling is a fake out to the audience where you pretend it's something else. And that's not the same as misdirection or a red herring. You can misdirect. One of the best mystery writers, Agatha Christie, she does that. She misdirects. You think it's good. She misdirects red herrings. But it must make sense when it's revealed. When the ending's revealed, you go, oh, of course. It's a misdirect. It's not a lie. It still makes sense. It just makes sense in a different way. It gives you a different perspective on it. You don't go, what? That doesn't make sense now. I think it tried to be too clever and unpredictable and just ruined itself because of that and became way too convoluted and confusing. Like Obsession has shown, the success of Obsession, there is nothing wrong with a straightforward concept executed well. Like, the concept behind Obsession isn't a particularly unique concept of relationship that turns horrifying because someone's so obsessed with the other person. It's not the most original concept, but there's nothing wrong with that. But I think a straightforward concept executed well is a lot better than a totally unique concept that just goes totally off the rails and is confusing and rambling and complicated and unfocused. Sometimes simpler just is better. You can tie yourself in knots trying to be too clever, especially when you confuse complicated for being smart. I think it's a shame because this show had so much potential and just failed epically by the end. I think that was the problem. I think they tried so hard to like, oh, how can we be fresh and clever and unpredictable? And then it was just like confusing, and they set up one show and we're like, oh, we're going to be so unpredictable, no one's going to guess what's happening. And it's like, yeah, because you're just lying now, and making the show seem like something it's not. Or wouldn't this be original, like a supernatural curse about death and stuff? Yeah, but you got to execute it well, and that's the most important thing. Sometimes simpler is better. And I know Obsession and Backrooms being movies, they are different mediums to Something Very Bad Is Going to Happen, but I think Something Very Bad Is Going to Happen could learn something because of that. It just needed to be cut down. It so did, amongst other things. Like, the plot was still weird, and I sort of had criticisms of it because it set up one thing and then just never explained certain things and never went anywhere with the original concept. However, it would be a far better show if you would cut like 4 episodes. It would have drastically improved even then. I think you have to be careful with TV because you can just go on telling a story for hours. But just because you can go on telling a story for hours doesn't mean you should. The strict time constraints of a movie can benefit your project sometimes. And Something Very Bad Is Going to Happen needed that. I'm not saying it should have been a movie, but it should have been like oh, let's constrain this. Let's really tighten this. And maybe then it could have been something good rather than something bad. Wasn't that a good joke? Hi. Are you tortured by never knowing what happened to the unreleased scripts from my unfinished video series, like parts 2 and 3 from my review of Netflix's Winx? Are you kept awake at night, pondering what mysteries the 30 minutes I cut from my Rolo video could hold? 30 key minutes where I addressed his unhinged rant that it's impossible for women to have heroes' journeys or be good protagonists. Did you enjoy channel videos like, I become a narcissist, I declare war on mosquitoes, and of course, the classic, I talk and 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 talk? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then joining my online cult could be the right choice for you. That's right. Over at The Authentic Observer on Patreon, you'll get access to unreleased scripts from videos I never uploaded, the cut sections from longer videos, if there are any, and hours of unedited rambles. I talk about everything, like how important mood is in storytelling and the difference, if any, between masculine and feminine points of view in writing. Or a video discussing the poetry of some of my patrons. Or that time Fresh and Fit had a proud grapist on their podcast. Remember Scientology? Old news. The Authentic Observer is the hip new cult on the block. All the cool kids are signing up. You do want to be cool, don't you? There are so many options to choose from. Our entry-level tier, Skirts and Stockings, is a great choice for beginners. Overgrown Harry Potter kids may feel more at home as a devoted follower of ACES. And for the alpha males amongst you, the woodshed could be just what you need. Just don't let Rolo see you. No one knows what he does to the men he catches. The Authentic Observer cult operates on an honesty system. All tiers have the same access to content, the idea being to support the channel and the content produced here at whatever level you feel appropriate. So if you value the content on this channel and would like to support me, that's where to do it. Link down below in the description box. So if, like myself, you enjoy listening to the sound of my voice, hop on over to Patreon for an offer you don't want to miss. Join a cult today! We've come to the end. Let me know what you think. I'm really interested in you guys' thoughts. If you cut off your toe as well, would you go through with it and drink the potion? That is the question. Everyone has to comment down below. Let me know what you think of that. Subscribe to the Patreon if you are keen to support the channel. We do some stuff over there. I've done I did another Wuthering Heights chat. It was something more information, more like of a discussion on some extra bits of Wuthering Heights that I didn't put in the original video. Did a chatty video over on Patreon talking about that. I also did recently on Patreon a video similar to this one I've just done on a bad thriller I read that did the same thing, but I just lying to the audience, and yeah, how bad and detrimental that is in storytelling. So if you're interested in seeing them and checking out the Patreon, head on over there. The link will be down below in the description. And thank you everyone very much for watching. If there was anything in this video that you didn't like or agree with, that was Aces's idea, so please only contact him directly with your complaints. Do comment below what you guys thought of the show if you saw it, and if you agree or disagree with my assessments. Or what you guys thought of Obsession or Backrooms as well. Be keen to hear your thoughts on that if you saw it. Thank you everyone very much for watching, and look after yourselves.